Chapter 1819. Humph. I've played enough. Next, it's your time of death. Song Wu snorted coldly and immediately forced the little Qilin to retreat. He then turned and charged towards Ningyu. Song Wu saw through it more clearly. As long as he attacked Ningyu, then the little Qilin would definitely go over to help. And at that time he could just lure the little Qilin to the millstone, then activate the teleportation array and leave together. Ziyun and Haoping, hurry up and come over. The teleportation array is about to be activated. Ning, you didn't know what Song Wu was thinking in his heart, but he was very clear that he must pull Lu Chuanji along at this time. So when he saw Song Wu charging towards him, he hurriedly cried out. Swish! This roar from Ning you made Lu Chuanji immediately understood. Teleportation array. Lu Chuanji was so angry that his face turned sinister. He had already discussed with Song Wu. The little Qilin belonged to Song Wu, and everything else belonged to him. Now that Song Wu actually wanted to bring Ningyu away without telling him, how could he tolerate it? Since he couldn't tolerate it, then Lu Chuanji forcefully pushed Ziyun and the rest away and charged toward Song Wu with an extremely terrifying speed. What the hell are you doing? Looking at Lu Chuanji, who was close to going crazy, Song Wu's pupil shrank and he hurriedly said, I will only bring the little Qilin away. Ning, you will definitely be left for you. Don't think that I'm a fool. It's already come to this. Do you think that I will still believe you? Lu Chuanji said sinisterly as he sped, If you're sensible, quickly throw Ningyu over. Otherwise I'll show you. There's still the last 30 seconds. No matter what, we have to hold on. At the most crucial moment, Song Wu naturally wouldn't hand over Ningyu. He took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, Lu Chuanji, if you insist on making trouble, then no one can leave today. If I can't leave, then I can't leave. Would I be afraid of you? Lu Chuanji had already made up his mind. Other than the little Qilin, everything belonged to him. Song Wu wanted to bring Ningyu away? No way. I can keep Ningyu here. Seeing that the teleportation array was getting closer and closer to activation, Song Wu finally couldn't take it anymore and coldly said, But you have to leave with Ningyu now. As he spoke, Song Wu's figure flashed and he reached out to grab Ningyu. Song Wu's action stunned everyone present, including Lu Chuanji. Give up Ningyu? Would Song Wu really do that? Lu Chuanji didn't believe it, the little Qilin didn't believe it, and even Elder Tianji and Ning Lu didn't believe it. Therefore, when Song Wu charged at Ningyu, the Elder of Heavenly Secrets, Ning Lu, and the others executed their secret techniques and charged at the millstone. Voila! As expected, everyone was right. If Song Wu wanted to give up on Ningyu, he would have done so long ago. Why would he wait until now? On the surface, Song Wu rushed towards Ningyu, wanting to grab Ningyu and throw him to Lu Chuanji. In reality, Song Wu was still stalling for time. 30 seconds passed in the blink of an eye. Song Wu had just come to Ningyu's side when the millstone started to shake. The millstone shook faster and faster. In the end, there was even a crack in the void. A huge light beam shot out from the void and shone on the millstone. Crack, crack, crack. When the light beam shone on the millstone, the immortal crystals in the grooves at the edge of the millstone turned into powder. The energy within the immortal crystals all gathered at the center of the millstone. Immediately after, the millstone started to spin, and the speed of spinning became faster and faster. So fast that it couldn't be seen with the naked eye. Not good. The teleportation array is about to activate. The sudden change not only shocked Lu Chuanji, but even the expression of Ningyu in the millstone changed drastically. Ningyu's original intention was to get everyone into the teleportation array and fight Song Wu in the core of the teleportation array. But in the current situation, only he and little Qilin entered the teleportation array. He and little Qilin might not be Song Wu's match in the teleportation array even if they joined forces. Come out for me. In a moment of desperation, Ningyu took a deep breath. A terrifying soul force burst out from his body. "You're crazy!" Feeling the horrifying soul force emanating from Ningyu's body, Songwoo's entire person became unwell. The teleportation array's activation was most afraid of spatial instability, and the strength of Ningyu's soul force reached peak grade 9 realm. Once he stirred up trouble sincerely, the consequences would be too ghastly to imagine. Teleporting in space, spatial turbulence was one of the scariest situations. Song-woo could virtually conclude that as long as Ningyu kept using his soul force, then the probability of them encountering spatial turbulence would greatly increase. "I'm not crazy. You're the crazy one." Ningyu took a look at Songwoo, then instructed little Kylan, "Be sure to stop Songwoo." Swoosh! Little Kylan understood and immediately surged with fighting spirit. Looking at little Kylan's stance, as long as Songwoo dared to make a move against Ningyu, it would launch an attack at the first instance. At the beginning of the teleportation array's activation, the most terrifying thing was the spatial instability. Ningyu displaying his soul force already made the space extremely unstable. It could be imagined if little Kylan and Songwoo fought fiercely again. What kind of state would the space become? "Lunatics, you're all lunatics." Songwoo could only say a few harsh words verbally. He did not dare to make a move himself, but Songwoo was not particularly worried either. He believed that after the teleportation array left Four Corner City, Ningyu and little Kylan would definitely stop, because at that time, if the two of them continued to do so, it was completely seeking their own deaths. "Let you guys no good." Songwoo's expression was cold as he muttered. However, the words in Songwoo's mouth had yet to finish when his expression changed drastically. The teleportation array was activated, but they did not leave this place. The millstone was still spinning rapidly. Furthermore, a horrifying spatial tearing force shot out from the millstone. The horrifying tearing force pulled everyone in the entire immortal crystal coal mine in. Guyan, Ziyun, and helping the cold-looking man, Yunmu, Old Man Tianji, the talisman's supremacy, Ninglu, Zhang Chang, and even the strongest, Lu Chuanji, were sucked into the millstone by the huge tearing force. Rumble! Everything came and went quickly. The space split open, and the millstone spun rapidly. Before long, it burrowed into the void and disappeared. At the same time, Elixir Emperor City, Elixir Refinement Union, outside a room that was not particularly eye-catching, two martial artists were pacing back and forth. Bang! All of a sudden, a muffled sound came from the room. Hearing the muffled sound, the slightly older martial artist outside the room was overjoyed and hurriedly said to the other martial artist, "Hurry and inform Master Gongyang. Tell him that Song-woo has already caught Qilin and activated the teleportation array. He'll be back in a few days." "All right." The other martial artist was equally overjoyed and hurriedly left to inform Master Gongyang. Wu Ji Kong Mo. The older martial artist was called Kong Mo, a late-stage sage. The martial artist who left was called Wu Ji, a mid-stage sage. Ever since Song Wu left through the teleportation array with Zhao Xing and Zhang Shui, the two of them had been guarding here. Their mission was very simple. Before the teleportation array was activated again, they had to prevent anyone from approaching this place. Chapter 1820. The distance between Pill Emperor City and Four Corner City was not particularly close. Normally, even a sage-level martial artist would need to spend a few days to reach Pill Emperor City from Four Corner City. However, it would be different if there was a teleportation array. The internal structure of the teleportation array was rather special. It would only take 3 to 4 hours at most to travel from Four Corner City to Pill Emperor City. At this time, in the void passage between Four Corner City and Pill Emperor City, a huge round millstone was advancing rapidly. Looking closely, one could see that there were about 10 martial artists on the millstone. These martial artists were divided into 3 camps. 2 peak sage martial artists occupied 1 camp each, while the rest of the martial artists occupied the 3rd camp. That's right, these people were none other than Ningyu and the others who had activated the teleportation array to leave Four Corner City. Just as Ningyu had guessed, Songwu and Lu Chuanji did not dare to forcefully attack the speeding millstone in the teleportation array. Everyone knew that if they forcefully attacked at this time, it was very likely to cause instability in the space, and there might even be spatial turbulence. The speed of the teleportation array was so fast that if there were spatial turbulence now, everyone would not have an easy time. Songwu, you have to give me an explanation for this matter. After a full half an hour of silence, Lu Chuanji said in a deep voice, "Tell me where the other end of the teleportation array is. Is there anyone waiting for us after we leave the teleportation array?" Of course. Without waiting for Songwu to answer, Ningyu shrugged and said, "The other end of the teleportation array is located inside the Pill Emperor City's Alchemy Union. If I'm not wrong, there should be no less than 10 sage-level martial artists guarding the other end of the teleportation array." Kaka! Hearing Ningyu's words, Lu Chuanji's entire face became gloomy. If it was really as Ningyu said, then even if he could successfully leave the teleportation array, he was destined to be captured. Although Lu Chuanji was very confident in his strength, this was not a high-level plane, but the immortal spirit realm. In the immortal spirit realm, he might be able to easily deal with 1, 2, or even 13 peak sage-level martial artists. However, what if there were 10 martial artists at the peak of the sage realm blocking his path? Therefore, Lu Chuanji clenched his fists and stared at Songwu fiercely. "I hope you'll tell me the truth. Otherwise, we'll all die here." As he spoke, Lu Chuanji unleashed his powerful aura, which spread out in all directions. Voila! Lu Chuanji had the cultivation of a peak sage. His powerful aura directly caused the already unstable space to tremble. Songwu's expression was also very ugly. He was very clear that if he allowed Lu Chuanji to continue like this, space turbulence would definitely appear in the end. There were still around 3 hours before they arrived at the Pill Emperor City. If a spatial turbulence appeared at this time, all of them would be finished. Taking a deep breath, Songwu said hurriedly, "Don't listen to Ningyu's nonsense. The other end of the teleportation formation is outside the Imperial Pill City. It's about a few dozen miles away from the city." "Are you sure?" Lu Chuanji looked at Songwu suspiciously. "Of course. Why would I lie to you? What good would it do me to lie to you?" Songwu first nodded his head, then asked, "My goal is the Kirin, and your goal is the Dan puppet and the ethereal body. We can totally cooperate. As the saying goes, if we work together, both sides will benefit. But if we don't play dumb with me. I wanted to cooperate with you, but you just had to scheme against me. Can you blame me for that?" Lu Chuanji waved his hand, interrupting the monster's words, and said, "In any case, don't talk nonsense. As long as I'm sure that the other end of the teleportation array is outside the Pill Emperor City, then the cooperation between us can continue. Anytime." Songwu smiled faintly, as if he had everything planned out. Little did they know, when Lu Chuanji retracted his aura, Songwu's entire body almost collapsed. For Songwu, the one who gave him the most pressure was not Ningyu, but Lu Chuanji. After all, Lu Chuanji's cultivation level was the same as his. They were both at the peak of the Saint Realm. Only when Lu Chuanji gave up going against him could he wholeheartedly deal with Ningyu, completely defeat Ningyu, and make Ningyu never have a chance to rise again. "Ningyu, let's talk, how about it?" After dealing with Lu Chuanji, Songwu immediately shifted his gaze to Ningyu and said indifferently, "There's actually no great enmity between us. How do you want to talk?" Ningyu said without batting an eyelid. "Very simple. Open your mind and let me control you, Songwoo said. Idiot. Ningyu stared at Songwoo and finally threw down these two words. Swoosh. Hearing Ningyu's words, Songwoo's expression instantly darkened. Don't refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit, Songwoo said fiercely. Without Lu Chuanji's help, do you really think you can do anything to me? I'm very sorry. I don't want to do anything to you. Ningyu's expression was calm, and he said, I'll give you two choices. 1. Find a way to stop the teleportation array. 2. I trigger the space turbulence, and everyone dies together. These words of Ningyu not only made Songwoo's expression change greatly, but even Lu Chuanji, who wanted to stay out of this matter, had a solemn expression. No matter what, triggering the space turbulence was something that nobody was willing to do. Since that was the case, then there was only one solution left. Stop the teleportation array. However, stopping such a fast teleportation array was terrifyingly difficult. At the very least, it was impossible for Songwoo to do it alone. Lu Chuanji's gaze moved, sweeping across everyone. After a while, Lu Chuanji roughly came to a conclusion. In order to stop the teleportation array, everyone on the millstone had to exert their strength, and it had to be at full strength. Putting aside whether Songwoo would help, even if Songwoo was willing to help, there would only be a 50% success rate in the end. In other words, do your best and leave the rest to fate. This kind of feeling made Lu Chuanji very displeased. In fact, Lu Chuanji even felt a little regretting following into the immortal crystal or vein, regretting entering the teleportation array. There's no way to stop the teleportation array. Songwoo's chest heaved up and down as he said in a cold voice. It could be seen that Songwoo was not willing to the two methods. I'm fine with it. Ningyu did not care whether Songwoo compromised or not. His original intention was to give Songwoo pressure, making Songwoo place his attention on him. Of the two methods, the first one that Ningyu thought of was to stop the teleportation array as soon as possible. But Ningyu would not rely on his own strength to stop the teleportation array, but secretly let little Qilin contact Lu Chuanji. Ningyu believed that Lu Chuanji definitely did not wish for the teleportation array to stop inside the Pill Emperor City. As long as little Qilin could reach an agreement with Lu Chuanji, they had a 30% chance of stopping the teleportation array in advance by joining hands. Chapter 1821. Master Gongyang. Ningyu's indifferent expression made Songwoo feel very uneasy in his heart. Not knowing why, Songwoo always felt that Ningyu's calmness was a little scary. A martial artist who could be calm and collected in the face of spatial turbulence. Even those peerless geniuses of high-class existential planes might not be able to do so. Hence, Songwoo hurriedly executed a secret technique, wanting to contact Gongyang Qing in advance. Honestly speaking, it would be a lie to not be worried on the surface. In fact, in Songwoo's heart, he was really worried that Ningyu would trigger spatial turbulence. How terrifying spatial turbulence was, Songwoo was clearer than Ningyu and the rest, because when in high-class existential planes, Songwoo had once encountered spatial turbulence. At that time, if not for others' help, Songwoo would probably have perished in the void. Now that Ningyu was going to trigger spatial turbulence, how could Songwoo not be worried? How could he not be afraid? However, fear and worry, Songwoo could not show these things. He wanted to give Ningyu a false impression that he was very calm. Life was like a play. It all depended on acting skills. Whoever's acting skills were the most likely to be the winner. Damn it! However, Songwoo forgot one thing. Lu Chuanji was here, both having peak sage cultivation. Any small movements of his would definitely not be able to hide from Lu Chuanji's eyes. Wanting to hide from Lu Chuanji and inform Gongyang Qing was even more difficult than stopping the teleportation formation in advance. I have to think of a way. Song Woo's eyes moved, thinking of countermeasures hurriedly. Song Woo was very clear that Ning Yu would definitely not wait much longer. At most an hour, maybe half an hour, Ning Yu would trigger spatial turbulence. Although he said that he did not believe that Ning Yu would trigger spatial turbulence, in Song Woo's heart, he very much believed that Ning Yu would do such a foolish thing. On the huge millstone, Song Woo was thinking of countermeasures. Ning Yu could trigger spatial turbulence at any time, and little Qilin and Lu Chuanji were secretly contacting each other. Cooperating with Lu Chuanji was undoubtedly asking a tiger for its skin. But now, Ningyu had no choice but to cooperate with Lu Chuanji. If they worked together, both sides would benefit. If they didn't, when the teleportation array stopped in the Alchemy Emperor City, everyone would be finished. Therefore, the negotiation between little Qilin and Lu Chuanji, other than the process being a little slow, everything was still considered to be smooth. Drip, drip. Time flew by quickly. In the blink of an eye, half an hour had passed. In this half an hour, little Qilin and Lu Chuanji had already reached some sort of agreement. As for Song Woo, he was a little overwhelmed. First of all, Song Woo had no way of contacting Gong Yangqing. Secondly, Song Woo felt that Ning Yu could not hold it in any longer. My patience is limited. At this moment, Ning Yu's eyes suddenly shone with a cold light, shooting fiercely towards another part of the void. Rumble. Although the cold gleam that shot out of Ning Yu's eyes wasn't very powerful, it still caused a loud boom when it collided with the void. Since you're not willing to stop the teleportation array in advance, then let's all die together. Ning Yu's face turned cold, shooting out several cold gleams again. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. This time, 3 cold gleams swept out in unison, blasting at the same place at the same time. Rumble. A loud sound was heard. The space gradually became unstable. At this rate, in a few minutes at most, space turbulence would form. Stop! Song Woo's face changed greatly, and he hurriedly berated, "If you want to die, don't drag me down with you." "Sorry, I don't want to die, you force me." Ning Yu shrugged, his eyes shooting out a few cold gleams again, blasting towards the void. "If you continue like this, I'm going to make a move," Song Woo said fiercely. Make a move. With you and little Qilin fighting, I'm afraid space turbulence will appear in advance. Ning Yu smiled faintly, and at the same time he released his soul force. Purely using Yuan Qi cold gleams to trigger space turbulence might require some time. But Ning Yu released his soul force. Using peak grade 9 soul force to trigger space turbulence, it could shorten the time by at least half. In other words, in a minute or 2 at most, space turbulence would appear. Lunatic, really a lunatic. Song Woo's entire person became unwell. The experience of space turbulence, he did not want to experience it a second time. "I'm willing." In a moment of desperation, Song Woo shouted. Facing death, Song Woo chose to compromise. "Wouldn't it be better if you were willing earlier?" Ning Yu withdrew his Yuan Qi and soul force and said coolly, "I also don't want to trigger space turbulence." "I have a condition," Song Woo said coldly. "The teleportation array can stop in advance, but it must stop outside Alchemy Emperor City." Ning Yu lifted his head and looked at Song Woo, pondered for a moment, and nodded, saying, "You can stop outside Alchemy Emperor City. I have no objections." "That's good." Song Woo let out a long sigh. Actually, Song Woo was very worried. He was worried that Ning Yu would not agree to let the teleportation array stop outside Alchemy Emperor City. Because once the teleportation array stopped prematurely, then he really had no way to explain to Gong Yangqing. But if the teleportation array stopped outside Alchemy Emperor City, then he could have a reasonable explanation. For example, someone leaked the news, letting those powerhouses in Alchemy Emperor City seize the opportunity and intercept the teleportation array in advance. After all, a living Qilin still had a very great attraction to the powerhouses who descended from high-order planes. Everybody attacked together! Song Wu waved both hands repeatedly and shouted loudly at the same time, "Don't think about holding back! If anyone dares to not use full power, when the space turbulence appears, everyone will die." Song Wu was the first to cast a mystic art, wanting to make the teleportation array's speed slow down. As for Lu Chuanji, Little Qilin, and even Ning Lu, they were in charge of maintaining the millstone stability. Forcing the teleportation array to stop was not a small matter. It could not be completed in a short time. Preliminary estimates starting from now, forcing the teleportation array to stop at full power, also needed at least 1 to 2 hours' time. And 1 to 2 hours just happened to be the time when the teleportation array reached Alchemy Emperor City. Be careful! Don't be tricked by Song Wu and Lu Chuanji. Ning, you secretly contacted Little Qilin, telling it to be careful. Martial artists who could cultivate to the peak of sage, which one was easy to deal with. Song Wu was not, and neither was Lu Chuanji. Be careful of Song Wu. Be careful of Lu Chuanji. This was a must. There could not be any mistakes. Don't worry, I know what to do. Ever since it advanced to the mid-stage sage, Little Qilin not only increased its strength, but even its way of doing things had become more stable. Sometimes Little Qilin handled things like a scheming and far-sighted person. I wonder if Human Demon is in Alchemy Emperor City. Ningyu knew that when the teleportation array stopped, there would be a storm. Lu Chuanji and Song Wu both had peak sage cultivation, and they both came from high-order planes. Among them, Lu Chuanji was the young master of Sacred God Palace. If they said they did not have a trump card, Ningyu would not believe it, even if he was beaten to death. According to Ningyu's guess, once the teleportation array stopped, Lu Chuanji and Song Wu would attack. Chapter 1822. Chi. In the void, Song Wu was desperately trying to reduce the speed of the millstone, while Lu Chuanji, Little Qilin, and the rest were maintaining the stability of the millstone. Although Song Wu was giving it his all, the millstone was still very fast. 1.5 hours. Ning Yu secretly calculated the time. According to Ning Yu's observation, the teleportation array would be forced to stop after 1.5 hours. If there were no accidents, the teleportation array would stop outside the Pill Emperor City, not too far from the city. To be honest, Ning Yu did not want the teleportation array to stop outside the Pill Emperor City, because the Pill Emperor City was very unfamiliar to him, and he knew nothing about the dangers there. People were afraid of the unknown, but Ningyu knew that he had no other choice but to wait quietly. Drip, drip, drip. Time was ticking away. As time passed, the vitality of everyone on the millstone began to decrease, especially Tianji, Lauren, Yunmu, and the rest, because their cultivation was lower. It did not take long for their vitality to be exhausted. Guyan, Ziyun, and Haoping and Zhang Chang, the few sage-level martial artists, also had their vitality depleted and could no longer hold on. And now, only 1 hour had passed since they started to force the teleportation array to stop. In other words, they had to hold on for at least half an hour. If they couldn't hold on for half an hour, they might fail at the last step. It didn't matter if they failed at the last step. The key was that once they could no longer hold on, the space would be extremely distorted, and there might even be a spatial storm that was more terrifying than the spatial turbulence. Compared to the spatial turbulence, the spatial storm was even more terrifying. If they had a chance of survival in the spatial turbulence, then they would all die in the spatial storm. Damn it! Turning his head to look at Ziyun and the rest, Song Wu couldn't help cursing. Before the operation, Song Wu could not wait for them to exhaust their vitality. But now, Song Wu knew that he had no other choice but to take out immortal crystals and elixirs to help Ziyun and the rest. Use them sparingly. Song Wu waved his sleeves and said coldly. Dozens of immortal crystals flew out from Song Wu's sleeves and landed in the hands of Ziyun, Gu Yan, and the rest. Kacha! After catching the immortal crystals, Ziyun, Gu Yan, and the rest did not hesitate. They immediately threw the immortal crystals into their mouths and began to absorb and refine the immortal crystals. The possibility of a spatial storm erupting caused everyone on the millstone to huddle together. Xiao! With the immortal crystals, Ziyun, Gu Yan, and the rest quickly became lively. A calamity was strangled in the cradle by Song Wu with immortal crystals before it could even happen. We still have half an hour. Song Wu's expression gradually calmed down. Song Wu knew that now was not the time to be angry. Ziyun and Gu Yan had already replenished their essence qi. Therefore, they only needed half an hour before the teleportation array was forced to stop. When the teleportation array stopped, that would be the moment of the real battle. On the surface, Song Wu was wholeheartedly trying to reduce the speed of the millstone, but in reality his attention had always been on little Qilin and Lu Chuanji. To Song Wu, Lu Chuanji and little Qilin posed the greatest threat to him. Song Wu had already thought of a countermeasure. Once the teleportation formation stopped, he would do two things. Firstly, he would inform Gong Yangqing to bring people over to help. Secondly, he would think of a way to capture Ningyu and force Lu Chuanji away. It didn't matter if little Qilin left. As long as he could capture Ningyu, he wouldn't have to worry about little Qilin not returning. But Lu Chuanji was different. Lu Chuanji's cultivation was at the pinnacle of the sage realm, and he also came from a higher plane. To be sent by Gong Yangqing to capture little Qilin, it meant that Song Wu wasn't a fool. A pinnacle expert like Lu Chuanji might even have a high position in a higher plane. For such a person, if he didn't have absolute confidence in killing him, then there was no need to form a life and death enmity with him. Song Wu had even thought of it. If Lu Chuanji insisted on bringing little Qilin away, then he could give little Qilin to the other party. He only wanted Ningyu. Half Cloud Mountain. It was located slightly north of the Pill Emperor City. With the speed of a sky sovereign, it would take at most 10 minutes to travel from Half Cloud Mountain to the Pill Emperor City. The shape of Half Cloud Mountain was very unique. The main peak towered into the clouds, and there were dozens of smaller mountains surrounding it. Half Cloud Mountain was rich in all sorts of herbs, and the wild beasts were abnormally ferocious. Therefore, cultivators with weak cultivations didn't dare to enter. Originally, Half Cloud Mountain was an ownerless mountain, and it didn't belong to any forces. But not long ago, the Alchemist Union suddenly announced that Half Cloud Mountain was the private property of the Alchemist Union. Without their permission, no one was allowed to take half a step into Half Cloud Mountain. When this news was announced, it caused a huge uproar. There were rumors that the reason why the Alchemist Union sealed off Half Cloud Mountain was because they lost a treasure, and the person who stole that treasure was hiding in Half Cloud Mountain. Of course, there wasn't just one rumor. Another rumor was that not long ago, the president of the Alchemist Union made a bet with a mysterious person and lost something to that mysterious person. But when the mysterious person left with that item, the president of the Alchemist Union suddenly went back on his words and sent out his most elite members to chase after that mysterious person. The mysterious person fled the entire way and finally stopped in Half Cloud Mountain. No matter what, there was a common point among the countless rumors. There was someone in Half Cloud Mountain, and it was someone wanted by the Alchemist Union. Crack! At the same time, in a secret chamber of the Alchemist Union of the Alchemist Emperor City, an old man stood up abruptly, and his right hand slammed on the chair he was sitting on. He looked around and said coldly, "Trash, I told you to look at something, but you can't even look at it. What did I tell you?" There were a total of 4 to 5 martial artists in the secret chamber. If there were people from the Alchemist Emperor City here, they would definitely notice that one of the martial artists was very familiar. It was the president of the Alchemist Union, Meng Chang'an. Meng Chang'an. The old man stared at Meng Chang'an and said in a deep voice, "I'll give you 3 more hours. If you don't find that item in 3 hours, I'll cripple you." "Yes." Meng Chang'an nodded his head heavily and immediately left the secret chamber with the other 2 martial artists. "You said that Song Wu will be back soon." After Meng Chang'an left, the old man finally relaxed a little. He turned around to look at the last martial artist in the secret chamber and asked, "How much longer will it take for him to arrive here?" "Master Gongyang, according to the feedback from the teleportation array, Song Wu and the rest will be back in about half an hour." Wu Ji hurriedly replied respectfully when he heard the old man's question. "Go. Wait at the teleportation array." Gong Yangqing waved his hand and said, "A living qilin is a top-notch medicinal ingredient for refining top-notch elixirs." As he spoke, Gong Yangqing moved his feet and walked out of the secret chamber. However, when he reached the entrance of the secret chamber, Gong Yangqing stopped. Chapter 1823. Half-Cloud Mountain, the highest main peak. All of a sudden, the void above the main peak suddenly split open. A streak of cold light charged towards the main peak with an extremely terrifying speed. Rumble. An earth-shattering, loud noise transmitted out. For a moment, sand and stones flew everywhere. Birds and beasts went berserk. What's going on? It's Half-Cloud Mountain. An explosion happened at Half-Cloud Mountain. A treasure was unearthed. Although Half-Cloud Mountain was very far from Alchemy Emperor City, Half-Cloud Mountain's main peak being smashed off at the waist still did not escape the perception of the numerous powerhouses in Alchemy Emperor City. As the saying went, the connoisseur understands the artistry, while the layman enjoys the show. Those who truly knew the inside story all could not help having a thought in their hearts. Meng Chang'an made a move against the mysterious person. The reason why Meng Chang'an wanted to seal off Half-Cloud Mountain was because the Alchemy Association lost an important item, and the person who stole that item, barring no accidents, was definitely hiding in Half-Cloud Mountain. Meng Chang'an had just brought the Alchemy Association's people and left Alchemy Emperor City, and Half-Cloud Mountain gave off such a loud rumbling sound. Even a fool would be able to guess what had happened. Swish, swish, swish. Regarding this matter, everyone's thoughts were different. Some people left Alchemy Emperor City, planning to go to Half-Cloud Mountain to watch the show. Some people continued to stay in Alchemy Emperor City and did not wish to get involved. Cough, cough. What happened in Alchemy Emperor City, Ningyu did not know. Ningyu only knew that roughly 3 minutes ago, under everyone's concerted efforts, they finally forced the transmission array to stop. However, the transmission array stopped, but the millstone did not manage to stop in time. It forcefully collided onto a massive mountain peak. Brushing away the crushed rocks on his body, Ningyu slowly opened both eyes, his entire person becoming a little dazed. Where is this? Coughing dryly twice, Ningyu's gaze moved and started searching the surroundings. Ningyu had never come to Alchemy Emperor City before, so how far away from here to Alchemy Emperor City, he did not know. Among the martial artists who took the transmission array over, probably only Song Wu knew where this place was. In order to be able to find Ning Lu and little Qilin as soon as possible, Ningyu even released his perception and soul force. Not good. However, no matter how Ningyu probed, he just could not find Song Wu. It could be said that apart from Song Wu, Ningyu had found everyone else. Even Lu Chuanji and Ningyu had detected his exact location. Only Song Wu seemed to have vanished into thin air, unable to be found no matter what. Ziyun, I'll have to trouble you to gather everyone. We have to leave this place as soon as possible. Ningyu was not an indecisive person. He made a prompt decision and decided to leave this place first. Since Song Wu had disappeared, it meant that it was extremely likely that he had gone to the Pill Emperor City to seek help. Once he returned, no one would have a good time. The most important thing now was to find a safe place as soon as possible and recover from his injuries. One had to know that although everyone did not suffer too serious of an injury after forcing the teleportation array to stop, they had expended too much of their essence energy. Right now, the essence chi in everyone's sea of consciousness was almost empty. At this time, the most important thing was to recover to his peak state as soon as possible. Otherwise, when Song Wu brought people over, everyone would die. Understood. Ziyu knew that now was not the time to be entangled with Ningyu. She immediately took action and gathered everyone together within a minute. Who knows where this is? Looking at everyone gathered together, Ningyu asked solemnly. Ningyu was very clear that leaving was not the main objective. Finding a safe place was of utmost importance. If they did not even know where this place was, then even if they left now, they could only scurry around like a headless fly. Half Cloud Mountain. Tianji Laoren stared at the surroundings and said, "This is Half Cloud Mountain. It's roughly a 10-minute journey from the Pill Emperor City." Roughly a 10-minute journey, huh? Ningyu frowned slightly, pondering what he should do next. Actually, in Ningyu's heart, there were two choices. First, everyone go to the Pill Emperor City together. Of course, going to the Pill Emperor City had the greatest risk, but the benefits were also the greatest. Because Song Wu would definitely not think that they would go to the Pill Emperor City. Second, everyone hide in this whatever Half Cloud Mountain. Hiding in Half Cloud Mountain. Even if the risk was smaller, he was afraid that Song Wu would bring a large number of experts over to surround them. Rumble. Just as Ningyu was pondering, a rumbling sound suddenly rang out from afar. Hearing that, everyone immediately shifted their gazes over. What they saw caused everyone's expressions to change drastically. The one that caused the rumbling sound was none other than Lu Chuanji. No one knew what was wrong with Lu Chuanji. Not only did he not escape, he even made a big move. Ningyu's face was ashen. He could predict that it wouldn't be long before all the experts from the Pill Emperor City would rush over. Because of the commotion caused by Lu Chuanji, it was as if some kind of treasure had been unearthed. The majority of the people from the Pill Emperor City were peerless experts from the higher planes. Facing a treasure, how could they not do anything? You guys enjoy it, I'll make a move first. Lu Chuanji smiled at Ningyu, then tore the void and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Although Lu Chuanji tore the void and left in front of Ningyu and the rest were clear that Lu Chuanji did not really leave. Reaching Lu Chuanji's realm, he would most likely hide in Half Cloud Mountain to watch the show. Where can we hide in Half Cloud Mountain? Ningyu retracted his gaze, turned to stare at Elder Tianji and said, "We must move there as soon as possible. Otherwise, when the people from the Pill Emperor City come, we'll all be finished. I know a place, but..." Elder Tianji moved his lips and said hesitantly, "Speak," Ningyu said in a low voice. "That place is very strange. None of the people who went in came out," Elder Tianji said solemnly. "Lead the way." Ningyu's eyes were cold, and he said in an unquestionable tone. At this time, how could he still care so much? Not leaving, only death awaited. Leaving, there was still a chance of survival. Others went to that place and could not come out, but it did not mean that they could not come out. After all, in this group of people, some knew divination, some were powerful, and there was even the existence of the world tree. All right. Elder Tianji nodded helplessly. Then his figure flashed, leading the way in front. Swish, swish, swish. Under Elder Tianji's lead, Ningyu and the rest flew all the way, finally arriving in front of a cave after 10 minutes. Wu Hung Cave. Looking at the 3 blood-red words carved on the top of the cave, Ningyu frowned and muttered, "What?" Hearing Ningyu's words, Elder Tianji jumped up on the spot, looking at Ningyu like he was looking at a monster, and said in horror, "You can see those 3 words." "Why can't I see it?" Ningyu frowned again, asking doubtfully. "Wuheng Cave? I can see it too. What's there to be surprised about?" Chapter 1824. You can also see those 3 words. If it was said that Ningyu's ability to see the 3 blood-red characters, Wuheng Cave, had shocked the Elder of Heaven's secrets, then Ninglu's ability to see it had shocked the Elder of Heaven's secrets to the extreme. Regarding the Wuheng Cave, there was a rumor. According to rumor, there were only 2 ways to see the words Everlasting Cave. First, grasp the art of divination. Second, his martial arts talent or soul talent had reached an extremely terrifying level. Elder Tianji was very familiar with Ningyu's talent and knew that it was extremely powerful. But Ninglu's talent was also so high that it truly surpassed the expectations of the Elder of Heavenly Secrets. One had to know that the younger one was, the scarier one's talent was. In other words, in terms of pure talent, Ningyu might lose to Ninglu. Let me tell you some things to take note of. Taking a deep breath, old man Tianji cast aside the thoughts in his mind and solemnly said, "The Wuheng Cave has an extremely powerful restriction array that will suppress everyone's cultivation to the heavenly supreme realm. As for whether our cultivation will be at the early stage or peak stage, that will depend on everyone. It depends on one's martial talent." "What dangers are there in the Wuheng Cave?" Ningyu asked. To be honest, the Wuheng Cave suppressing cultivation was very beneficial to Ningyu and the others, because no matter who it was, once they entered the Wuheng Cave, their cultivation would be at the Sky Supreme Realm. Ningyu was confident that he wouldn't lose to any cultivator under the Sky Supreme Realm. So, the danger of entering the Wuheng Cave might not come from the outside world, but from within the Wuheng Cave. I'm not sure about the specific dangers, because I've never been inside before. Tianji Larin shook his head and said, "But there is one thing that I am very clear about, and that is that no one who entered the Wuheng Cave was able to come out. Even in ancient times, there were peak saint realm experts who entered the Wuheng Cave, but they were also unable to come out." Whoosh! Elder Tianji's words caused everyone's expressions to turn solemn. Suppressing his cultivation was a small matter, but not being able to come out was a huge matter. After all, no one knew what was inside the Wuheng Cave and what dangers one would encounter inside. For a moment, everyone hesitated. Rumble. However, just as the crowd was hesitating, a shocking explosion could be heard from afar. "Not good. Someone has entered empty half-cloud." Hearing this rumble, the Elder of Heavenly Secrets paled. He hurriedly said, "Are we going in or not?" "Ningyu, make a decision." "Go in." Ningyu's eyes were cold. He gritted his teeth and said, "We'll die if we stay. Everyone follow me. Let's go in." As he spoke, Ningyu made a prompt decision. His figure flashed, and he was the first to enter the endless cave. Seeing Ningyu entering the Wuheng Cave, the Heavenly Fortune old man, Ninglu, Yunmu, Ziyun, and the other cultivators all moved their bodies and entered the Wuheng Cave. Buzz! Not long after Ningyu and the others entered the Wuheng Cave, the void in front of the cave suddenly split open, and a cultivator slowly appeared. If Ningyu and the others were here, they would definitely discover that this martial artist was none other than Lu Chuanji, who had escaped into the void not long ago. The current Lu Chuanji's brows were tightly knitted, as if he had encountered something he could not understand. The Wuheng Cave. Could it really be like what the Heavenly Fortune old man said? Only people with extremely high talent can see it? Staring at the rock above the cave entrance, Lu Chuanji's brows knitted into a crease. Regarding the 3 words Wuheng Cave that Ningyu and the others mentioned, he did not see it. Lu Chuanji was very confident in his talent. Hence, When the Heavenly Fortune Old Man said that his talent was not enough to see the 3 words Wuheng Cave, Lu Chuanji harbored a doubtful attitude. Should I go in or not? Lu Chuanji's expression was solemn, secretly considering the pros and cons. If what Heavenly Fortune Old Man said was right, his cultivation would also be suppressed to the Sky Supreme Realm when he entered the Wuheng Cave. Lu Chuanji was not a fool. Once his cultivation was suppressed to the Sky Supreme Realm, then it would be very hard for him to gain any advantage inside the Wuheng Cave. Hence, the current plan was to not go in for the time being, and spread the news of Ningyu and the others hiding in the Wuheng Cave, luring Songwu and the rest over. Whoosh! Lu Chuanji was not an indecisive person. If he said he would do it, then he would do it. With both feet on the ground, Lu Chuanji immediately tore through the void and entered. Outside the Wuheng Cave, Ningyu did not know what Lu Chuanji was doing, nor did he want to know, because at this moment Ningyu and the others were facing a choice, a rather difficult choice. Just as the Heavenly Fortune Old Man had said, after entering the Wuheng Cave, all of their cultivation would be suppressed to the Sky Supreme Realm. Among them, and Haoping, Ziyun, Guyan, and Zhongchang's cultivation would be suppressed to the late Sky Supreme Realm. Yunmu, the Talisman Supremacy, and the Heavenly Fortune Old Man's cultivation would be suppressed to the early Sky Supreme Realm. The little Qilin, Ning Lu, and Ning Yu's situation was very special. The little Qilin's cultivation was a little vague. It seemed to be at the Sky Supreme Realm, but also seemed to be at the Sage Realm. As for Ning Yu and Ning Lu, their cultivation did not decrease in the slightest. In other words, Ning Lu was still a peak Sky Supreme, and Ning Yu was still a late Sky Supreme. As for why their cultivation did not decrease, Ning Yu did not have that much time to think about it. To him, the most important thing right now was to make a choice. My suggestion is to split up. Half of us go to the left and the other half to the right. That way, even if there is danger, we can minimize it. The Heavenly Fortune Old Man said after a moment of silence, "Now is not the time for us to split up." Ning Yu shook his head and pointed to the left passage. "Let's go this way." "Why the left? Even if we have to choose, we should choose the right. The Yuan Qi on the right passage is much denser than on the left." Yunmu was puzzled. Ning Yu glanced at Yunmu before withdrawing his gaze and speaking in an indifferent voice. Intuition. As soon as he finished speaking, Ning Yu didn't care about what Yunmu thought. He moved his feet and entered the tunnel on the left. Ning Lu and the little Qilin agreed with Ning Yu unconditionally. So when they saw Ning Yu enter the left passage, they hurriedly followed. Behind them, Zhongchang and An Haoping also followed closely. The cold-looking man had already been put into Ning Yu's storage ring, so he did not follow everyone. "Let's go." The Heavenly Fortune Old Man waved his hand and said, "Ning Yu's choice of the left passage is not without reason. The closer it is to this, the more we cannot be fooled by superficial illusions." With that, the Heavenly Fortune Old Man also did not care about Yunmu's thoughts and strode into the left passage. Fooled by superficial illusions? Yunmu frowned and shifted his gaze to the right passage. Hiss! Yunmu sucked in a breath of cold air when he saw what it was. Then, Yunmu hurriedly pulled the Talisman Supremacy into the left passage. Chapter 1825. Rumble. When Ningyu and the others completely disappeared, a rumbling sound suddenly came from the right passage. If everyone was still here, they would have noticed that the ground had suddenly caved in. That wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was that a 4-horned monster with a human body and a horse's head slowly walked out of the pit. The 4-horned monster's cultivation was not at the Sky Supreme Realm, but at the Sage Realm. From the aura that the 4-horned monster emitted, it could be roughly determined that its cultivation was at least in the late Sage Realm. In a cave where everyone's cultivation had been suppressed to the Sky Supreme realm, a late sage realm monster had suddenly appeared. Everyone knew what that meant. Someone else has come in. I can sense that this time there is an extremely talented person. I hope Master will like him. The four-horned monster opened its mouth. Then it leaped into the crater and disappeared. Everyone be careful. There might be danger later. In the left passage, Elder Tingy's expression was solemn as he said in a low voice, "The space in the area ahead is very unstable. Since the space ahead is unstable, we can all stop moving forward and stay here for an hour or two before returning the way we came." Yunmu couldn't help but suggest when he heard Elder Tingy's words. Before you make a decision, please use your brain to think about it a little more. Before Ningyu and the Elder of Heavenly Secrets could say anything, Ninglu rolled his eyes and said, "There are some words that are easy to be laughed at when spoken." Yunmu's expression changed when he heard Ninglu's words. He forcefully swallowed the words that were on the tip of his tongue, just like how he had doubted Ningyu's choice. Yunmu turned around and looked behind him. He completely understood his mistake. Compared to the space behind the passage, the space ahead could only be described as extremely stable. In other words, it wasn't that Ningyu and the others didn't want to stay where they were, or that they didn't want to return the way they came. It was just that the way back was more difficult than going forward. If they could go back, who would want to go deeper into the cave? After all, the most terrifying thing was the unknown danger. Rustle. Next, everyone slowly moved forward. Crack. However, after they continued forward for a quarter of an hour, something strange happened. The space in front of them suddenly split open, and a one-horned monster appeared in front of them. The one-horned monster was rather unique. It had a human body and a horse head, and there was a single horn on its head. What shocked everyone the most was not the appearance of the one-horned monster, but its cultivation base. Early stage sage. The one-horned monster's cultivation was at the early stage of the sage realm, and its vitality was extremely dense. You too, come with me. After the one-horned monster appeared, it first swept its gaze over everyone, then stretched out its right hand and pointed at Ningyu and Ninglu, saying, "The rest of you wait here." "Who are you?" Ningyu wasn't going to compromise just because of the one-horned monster's words. He frowned and asked, "Why did you stop us?" "Who I am isn't important. What's important is that the two of you are quite talented, so you were chosen," the one-horned monster said with a shrug. "His talent is not bad. He was chosen?" Ninglu similarly raised his brows and said coldly, "You want to take us away without even making things clear? Aren't you a little too arrogant?" "Arrogant? I don't think so." The one-horned monster curled its lips and said, "In this world, strength is everything. Whoever is stronger will have the final say. I'm stronger than you, so that's how it should be." "Humph. A early-stage sage realm warrior dares to be arrogant in front of me? Do you have what it takes to be arrogant?" Ninglu snorted coldly. Swoosh! As soon as Ninglu's voice fell, the one-horned monster's figure flashed and rushed out rapidly. Bang! Facing the charging one-horned monster, Ninglu pushed Ningyu away, clenched his right hand into a fist, and directly punched out. In the next moment, an extremely clear sound rang out. Two figures were sent flying backwards at the same time. Just from the distance that they were sent flying back, Ninglu and the single-horn monster were evenly matched in terms of strength. Pucci! However, all of this was just on the surface. The real situation gradually became clear after Ninglu spat out a large mouthful of dark red blood. "Your talent is so strong." The one-horned monster stared at Ninglu with an ecstatic look on its face. Originally, in the one-horned monster's opinion, although Ninglu's talent was strong, it was limited. But now it seemed that Ninglu's talent had reached a terrifying level. It could be said that since the appearance of the Wuheng Cave, among all the selected warriors, Ning Lu's talent was enough to rank in the top 3. Ha ha ha! I've picked up a treasure this time. In excitement, the one-horned monster even raised its head and laughed loudly. After laughing wildly, the one-horned monster's eyes fell on Ningyu. His talent is so high, so yours must not be bad. Let me test it. The corner of the one-horned monster's mouth raised slightly, and then it rushed out again. This time, the one-horned monster's target was Ningyu, not Ning Lu. After testing Ning Yu's martial talent, the one-horned monster was very interested in Ning Yu's martial talent. If Ning Yu's martial talent was comparable to Ning Lu's, then the one-horned monster would be rich. The more it thought about it, the more excited the one-horned monster became. In the process of rushing out, the one-horned monster could not stop laughing. Attacked together, Ning Yu would not foolishly fight one-on-one with the one-horned monster. His expression was cold, and he immediately decided that everyone should attack together to resist the one-horned monster. The confrontation between Ning Lu and the one-horned monster just now made Ning Yu judge the one-horned monster's true combat strength. Stronger than Ning Lu, but not too much stronger. With everyone joining hands, there was a very high possibility of capturing the one-horned monster. The one-horned monster was the first demonic beast they encountered after entering the Wuheng Cave. If they could capture it, then it would be of great help towards understanding the Wuheng Cave. Swoosh! Under Ning Yu's instructions, everyone moved one after another and started encircling the one-horned monster. You guys have probably lost your minds, right? Looking at the people surrounding it, the one-horned monster was a little dumbfounded. Since the one-horned monster dared to come over, it showed that he had great confidence in being able to capture everyone present. Don't forget, this place was the Wuheng Cave, not outside. Inside the Wuheng Cave, the strength of the one-horned monster, they all was truly terrifying. Since you guys think that you can compete with me, then I'll show you some strength so that you'll be convinced and give up. The one-horned monster shrugged, and then the aura of its body continued to increase. Early stage sage peak, middle stage sage peak. In just a few seconds, the one-horned monster's cultivation had increased from early stage sage peak to late stage sage peak. Moreover, the one-horned monster's cultivation was still increasing. Based on this trend, the one-horned monster's cultivation could at least be increased to sage peak, and it was not impossible for it to break through to the great perfection sage. Chapter 1826. Crack! Just when Ning Yu and the rest surrounded the one-horned monster, before they could launch their attacks, they heard a crisp cracking sound coming from the monster. Hiss! The crisp cracking sound caused everyone, including Ning Yu, to have a drastic change in their faces. Pinnacle Saint Realm. They had no idea what secret technique the one-horned monster had executed, but its cultivation had actually reached the Pinnacle Saint Realm. If this wasn't the Wuheng Cave, and everyone's cultivation wasn't suppressed to the Heavenly Sovereign Realm, then it wouldn't be a big deal even if the one-horned monster's cultivation had reached the Pinnacle Saint Realm. After all, the strength that the one-horned monster had displayed was at most on par with Lu Chuanji, and it might even be slightly weaker. But right now, even if Ning Yu and the rest joined forces, they might not be the one-horned monster's opponent. How about it? Do you still want to fight me now? The one-horned monster seemed to be enjoying everyone's astonished gazes, so it raised its brows and pointed at Ning Yu and Ning Lu. The two of you follow me. Everyone else stay here. Russell. Hearing the one-horned monster's words, Ziyun and the rest looked at Ning Yu. At this moment, everyone had already treated Ning Yu as a leader. At this moment, if Ning Yu wanted them to go all out and fight the one-horned monster, no one would reject it. You guys wait here. Ning Lu and I will go with him. After a brief hesitation, Ning Yu made his decision. Right now, they definitely couldn't fight head-on. The Wuheng Cave wasn't simple. Although there was only one one-horned monster, Ningyu knew that if there was one, there would be two, three, or even countless. Therefore, the best choice was to follow the one-horned monster and see what it had up its sleeves. Truth be told, Ningyu wasn't worried that the one-horned monster would kill him and Ninglu, because with the one-horned monster's strength, it would have already killed them if it wanted to, and there was no need for it to wait until now. Very good. The one-horned monster looked at Ningyu playfully and said, I didn't expect you to become their leader even though your cultivation isn't high, as expected of someone extremely talented. Whoosh! As he spoke, the horned monster's figure flashed out, flashing directly towards the depths of the endless cave. Seeing the one-horned monster leave, Ningyu and Ninglu looked at each other before leaping up and following closely behind the monster. Whoosh! 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 Not long after Ningyu and the other two left, the void in this area suddenly split open, and 4 small vortexes appeared. Then a flag shot out from each vortex. The flags were placed in 4 different directions, trapping Lord Tianji and the little Qilin in the middle. The 4 flags did not seem to be connected to each other on the surface, but they were actually connected, and there was an invisible barrier between them. Don't move! Elder Tianji knew the power of this formation, so when he saw Yunmu reach out to touch the invisible barrier, he immediately shouted, If you don't want to die, then go ahead and touch those things! Whoosh! At the same time, Elder Tianji took out a piece of origin crystal and threw it at the barrier. Chi! As soon as the origin crystal touched the invisible barrier, it turned into a cloud of mist and disappeared. Elder Tianji's rebuke made Yunmu's heart tremble, and he quickly retracted his hand. At the same time, Yunmu gasped. Fortunately, Elder Tianji reminded her in time, or else she would have turned into nothingness. What should we do now? Are we just going to wait for death here? Yunmu asked after retracting his hand. Wait. Elder Tianji did not say much. He only said one word. Wait. Yunmu was confused. Ziyun was confused. Gu Yan was confused. Everyone was confused. In this situation, what was the difference between waiting and waiting for death? Were they going to wait for Ningyu to come back and save them? It was not that they looked down on Ningyu, but the one-horned monster's cultivation was at the pinnacle Saint Realm. Although Ningyu and Ninglu's cultivation were not affected by the endless cave, they were only at the late and pinnacle sky supremes. One was a late and the other was a pinnacle sky supreme. If the 2 of them could defeat the one-horned monster, the sun would rise from the west. Elder Tianji looked at everyone's confused expressions. He opened his mouth, but chose to shut it in the end. In fact, even Elder Tianji was not sure if Ningyu could come back and save them, because just now he had secretly used his art of divination to make a divination. According to the divination, the disaster this time was extremely dangerous. However, it did not mean that there was no hope. Elder Tianji knew very well that this kind of divination usually meant that there was a chance of survival. As for whether this chance of survival was Ningyu, even Elder Tianji did not know. After all, his art of divination had not been mastered to a certain level. Swish! 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 Elder Tianji and the others were trapped, but Ningyu and Ninglu did not know. The 2 of them followed the one-horned monster and kept moving forward. But the deeper they went into the Wuheng cave, the more shocked Ningyu and Ninglu became. As they went deeper, Ningyu and Ninglu discovered that the density of the yuan qi inside the Wuheng cave had reached a terrifying level. Cultivating here would yield twice the results with half the effort. In other words, if they cultivated here, Ningyu and Ninglu were very confident that they could shorten the time needed to advance. 2 country bumpkins. The one-horned monster looked back at Ningyu and Ninglu, then rolled its eyes and said, Hurry up and keep up. We will reach our destination in a short while. After saying this, the one-horned monster did not care where Ningyu and Ninglu were going, but continued to increase its speed. Swish! After following the one-horned monster at full speed for about half an hour, Ningyu and the others finally stopped. A plaza? But looking at the huge plaza in front of them, Ningyu and Ning Lu revealed a puzzled expression at the same time. They had thought that the one-horned monster would bring them to see someone. Who would have thought that the monster would bring them to a plaza? Although the plaza was large, it was very empty. There was a huge round stage in the empty plaza. On the round stage, there was a slightly thin youth with his hands behind his back. He raised his eyebrows and looked at Ning Lu and Ningyu provocatively. He said disdainfully, "This is my 10th battle? Why did they find 2 heavenly supreme trash? Could it be that the celestial spirit realm didn't even have one? Don't tell me there is not even a single sage here? Evil slave, cut the crap. If you defeat them, you can leave. If you lose, you should know the consequences." The one-horned monster's expression was cold as it reprimanded him. "This is your 10th battle. I hope that you will give it your all. Otherwise, even if you win, I will make you fight another 10 battles." Hearing this, the youth who was called Evil Slave couldn't help but look ferocious. The previous 9 battles had all been life-or-death battles for him. Just one more battle and he would be able to leave this damned place. Who would have thought that the one-horned monster would bring 2 Sky Supreme cultivators? Originally, the Evil Slave had planned on playing with Ningyu and Ning Lu, but now he had changed his mind. The Evil Slave had decided to use his full strength. He was determined to kill Ningyu and Ning Lu in one strike. Chapter 1827. You two go up and fight the Evil Slave. The one-horned monster pointed at the Evil Slave on the round platform and said, "Kill the Evil Slave and you will pass the first test." The first test? Ningyu and Ning Lu frowned at the same time. Since there was a first test, it meant that there would be a second and third test. If the first test was to fight against a mid-stage sage, one could imagine how terrifying the second and third tests would be. That's right, the first test. However, I have to remind you. The one-horned monster shrugged and said, "You must win this battle. Otherwise, your friends will become a pile of bones." Whoosh! The one-horned monster's words caused Ningyu and Ning Lu's expressions to change slightly. Ningyu had thought that the one-horned monster would not let the elder of Tianji and the others go, but he did not expect that their lives would be completely in his and Ning Lu's hands. After taking a deep breath, Ningyu said in a deep voice, "Are you sure that Ning Lu and I will fight against the Evil Slave in this battle?" "Of course it will be 2 against 1. The one-horned monster was a little speechless. "Although you are very talented, your cultivations are not very high. Also, I have to remind you that the Evil Slave has already killed 9 cultivators like you. Go!" Ningyu knew that he would not be able to get an answer from the one-horned monster. Therefore, he looked at Ning Lu, then leaped up and charged towards the round platform. Whoosh! Whoosh! Although Ning Lu and Ningyu's cultivation was only at the Heavenly Sovereign Realm, their speed wasn't any weaker than ordinary Saint Realm cultivators. In the blink of an eye, the 2 of them appeared on the huge round platform facing the Evil Slave. "You are not very lucky today." The Evil Slave stared at Ningyu and Ning Lu and said calmly, "If this was my first 9 battles, I would definitely let you go. I would only cripple you and destroy your cultivations. I would not kill you." At this point, the Evil Slave paused for a moment before he continued, "But now, I've decided to go all out and kill both of you with a single strike." The moment the word "kill" was uttered, the Evil Slave's body moved and charged towards Ningyu and Ning Lu at a terrifying speed. Chi-chi! The fiendish slave moved so quickly that it created a sizzling sound as it rubbed against the air. "Out of the way!" Looking at the Evil Slave approaching him, Ningyu made a prompt decision to separate from Ning Lu. No matter how strong an Evil Slave was, there was only one of them. If he and Ning Lu fought together, it was possible that the Evil Slave would use some powerful technique to kill them both. But when he and Ning Lu stood separately, the evil slave could only deal with one. What? However, just as Ning Yu thought that the slave would target either him or Ning Lu, the slave did something that shocked him. The evil slave split into two and suddenly became two evil slaves. Cloning technique? Ning Yu was certain that the evil slave was not using a cloning technique. Or rather, it was much more powerful than a cloning technique. The two evil slaves looked exactly the same. There was no difference in their combat strength or aura. Two evil slaves meant that he and Ning Lu had to deal with two of them. The pressure would increase exponentially and become extremely great. Ning Lu, be careful. Ning Yu threw away all the thoughts in his mind and focused on dealing with the evil slave. Ning Yu knew that he had to stay calm at a time like this. Although the evil slave's cultivation was at the mid-stage sage, his combat strength was comparable to a mid-stage sage after he advanced to the late-stage Sky Supreme. Ning Lu's combat strength was even more exaggerated. After advancing to the peak Sky Supreme, Ning Lu's combat strength was comparable to a late-stage sage. Although the evil slave was strong, he was not invincible. This was especially true when the evil slave was fighting on two fronts. He had unknowingly split his combat strength. Bang! Bang! In the blink of an eye, two crisp sounds rang out. After the evil slave attacked once, the two doppelgangers immediately merged together. He's so strong! The evil slave rubbed his slightly swollen fists. His eyes darted around as he tried to think of a countermeasure. Through the attack, just now, the evil slave had basically confirmed the strength of Ning Yu and Ning Lu. In a one-on-one fight, he could easily defeat one of them. However, in a one-on-two fight, it would take him a long time to defeat Ning Yu and Ning Lu. This was the evil slave's 10th fight. He did not want this to drag on for too long. His eyes were cold as he made a decision. He would use his speed to confuse Ning Lu and focus on dealing with Ning Yu. The evil slave was not an indecisive person. He immediately mobilized the primordial qi in his body and gathered it at his ankles. His speed instantly increased. Be careful. He's trying to deceive us with his speed. Ning Lu was a tree of world and had advanced to the peak Sky Supreme. His perception was naturally very strong. As soon as the evil slave made his move, Ning Lu used his powerful perception to lock onto the evil slave's true body and told Ning Yu where the evil slave was. I know what to do. Ning Yu's expression was solemn. The evil slave wanted to kill him in one move. Why wouldn't he want to do the same? This was only the first trial. There were still the second and third trials to go. If he wasted too much primordial qi and energy in the first trial, he would be at a disadvantage in the subsequent trials. Dong! 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 What Ning Yu and Ning Lu did not know was that in another part of the void, two young cultivators were sitting on chairs. One of them, a young cultivator in white clothes, stretched out his right hand and gently tapped the table in front of him. He said, "These two cultivators are not bad. They can actually fight the evil slave to this extent. If we send them to the market, they should be able to fetch a good price." Just to sell them for a good price? The other young cultivator in light blue clothes smirked and said, "Both of them are very talented. They are worth nurturing." Worth nurturing. The cultivator in white looked at the cultivator in blue in surprise. He was a little shocked. In the organization, the status of the cultivator in blue was much higher than his. The people he came into contact with were also different. Originally, the cultivator in white thought that the cultivator in blue's visit had something to do with the evil slave. After all, the evil slave had fought 9 consecutive battles and was only 1 battle away from leaving. However, the words of the cultivator in blue made the cultivator in white involuntarily look at Ning Yu and Ning Lu. The cultivator in white clearly remembered that when the cultivator in blue had inspected the various everlasting caves, he had only said the words worth nurturing 3 times. This meant that only 3 or 4 cultivators had caught the eye of the cultivator in blue for a very long time. It should be known that the weakest of the martial artists who caught the attention of the martial artists in blue were at least at the sage level. Chapter 1828. When this battle is over, send Evil Tyrant to the ring and have a match with the two of them. The martial artist in blue tapped the table with his right hand again and said calmly, I want to test their strength through Evil Tyrant and see if I should send them to the human level or earth level training ground. Swoosh! If the white-clothed martial artist was shocked when the blue-clothed martial artist said the words worth nurturing, then when the blue-clothed martial artist said this, the white-clothed martial artist's shock reached its peak. To be honest, the martial artist in white was a little dumbfounded. Send Evil Tyrant to the ring after the battle? The martial artist in blue's meaning was clear. Evil Slave would definitely fail and might even be killed. However, Evil Slave had the upper hand in the ring, no matter how one looked at it. In the eyes of the martial artist in white, Ningyu and Ninglu were already very lucky not to be killed. As for them killing Evil Slave? Sorry, the martial artist in white had never thought about it. The martial artist in white took a deep breath and said carefully, Well, Evil Tyrant will have an extremely important battle in half an hour. It's against a peerless genius from the demon spirit realm. This is going to be troublesome. The martial artist in blue frowned when he heard the martial artist in white's words. No one knew what he was thinking. After a while, the martial artist in blue said, Go and bring that peerless genius from the demon spirit realm over. I want to see who is stronger, him or these two brats. The martial artist in white suddenly felt his mouth go dry. One had to know that the peerless genius from the demon spirit realm was a late-stage sage. In terms of combat strength, the peerless genius from the demon spirit realm was even stronger than Evil Tyrant. It would be better to send Evil Tyrant instead of a demon spirit realm genius. However, although the martial artist in white felt that it was a waste to send a demon spirit realm genius, he had no choice but to obey the martial artist in white's words. I'll be right back. With a flash, the martial artist in white tore through the void and entered. Dong! 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 After the martial artist in white disappeared, the martial artist in blue knocked on the table again and murmured, I hope these two won't disappoint me. Rumble. Ningyu and Ninglu did not know what the martial artist in blue was murmuring. But even if they knew, they didn't have the time to care. This was because the battle between them and the evil slaves had reached its climax. It was the most crucial moment. The vile slave's battle strength was indeed exceptionally terrifying. 1 against 2. Not only did he not show the slightest sign of weakness, he firmly suppressed the two of them. Under such circumstances, if nothing unforeseen happened, the evil slave would probably be the final victor. Damn it, if it wasn't for me using my dark golden branches to help Ziyun, how could that evil slave be my opponent? Ning Lu's face was livid. The evil slave's cultivation was only at the middle stage of the sage realm, but his strength was comparable to a martial artist at the peak of the late stage of the sage realm. After reaching the pinnacle heavenly supreme realm, Ning Lu's strength was only comparable to late phase saint realm cultivators. Although one was at the late stage of the sage realm and the other was at the peak of the late stage of the sage realm, the gap between them was huge. Of course, this gap was only a matter of a few dark golden branches for Ninglu. If he still had his dark golden branches, he might have been able to defeat the evil slave with all 5 of them. Cut the crap. There's only one way for us to defeat the evil slave. Ning, you did not know how to find excuses. He only knew how to look for opportunities. What is it? Ninglu asked. Channel all your vitality into my body, and I'll deal the fatal blow to the evil slave. Ningyu's eyes were cold, as if he had made a big decision. That's a good idea. Ninglu was slightly stunned, but his eyes soon lit up. Ninglu knew that this method could indeed deal a fatal blow to the evil slave. If they were prepared, they could even kill the evil slave directly. Although this method was good, it had a huge drawback. Firstly, the vitality of two people would be channeled into one person's body, which would be a huge test for the one who launched the attack. If one's body quality was not up to standard, there was a high chance that one's body would explode and die. Secondly, even if one's body quality was up to standard, one could still be injured by the evil slave's counterattack. In short, the one who launched the attack would be under the greatest pressure and danger. Let me do it. After all, my cultivation is a level higher than yours, and my self-healing ability is also stronger than yours. Ning Lu took a deep breath and said, "Help me distract the evil slave first. I'll be in charge of killing the evil slave." In order to prevent Ning Yu from competing with him, Ning Lu kicked Ning Yu away after saying that. What the hell are they doing? The evil slave was confused when he saw Ning Lu kick Ning Yu. Logically speaking, the two of them should be working together to deal with him. Why did they have a disagreement? The evil slave was a person with few thoughts. If he could not figure it out, he would not think about it. Whether Ning Lu and Ning Yu had a disagreement or not had nothing to do with the evil slave. His main goal was to kill Ning Yu and Ning Lu. Regardless of whether Ning Yu and Ning Lu had a disagreement or not, the evil slave wanted to kill Ning Yu and Ning Lu. He would not change his mind just because they had a disagreement. The evil slave turned around and looked at the one-horned monster. His eyes turned cold, and he said viciously, "This day next year will be the day you die." As soon as he said that, the evil slave's figure flashed and charged straight at Ning Lu. Since Ning Yu and Ning Lu had separated, it was a good opportunity for the evil slave. If Ning Yu and Ning Lu worked together again, it would take him some time to kill them. Now that Ning Yu and Ning Lu had separated, it was a good opportunity for the evil slave to kill them. Rumble. The evil slave clenched his right hand into a fist and threw a punch. The fist brought with it a violent gust of origin energy that tore a hole in the void. The terrifying aura was like a speeding flying sword that slashed at Ning Lu. This is the moment. Just as the flying sword was about to hit Ning Lu, Ning Yu's figure suddenly flashed and disappeared right in front of the evil slave. Where did he go? Ning Lu's sudden disappearance shocked not only the evil slave, but even the one-horned monster in the distance widened its eyes in shock. Buzz. Ning Lu's disappearance was as sudden as his reappearance. Ning Lu did not appear next to the evil slave, nor did he appear in the distance. Instead, he appeared next to Ning Yu. Pa! As soon as Ning Lu appeared, Ning Yu waved his hands and slapped the evil slave's back. The origin energy in Ning Yu's body surged. An endless stream of origin energy flowed through Ning Yu's palms and into Ning Lu's body through his back. Bang! 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 As the origin energy in Ning Lu's body increased, dull thuds kept coming from his body. As the dull thuds increased, Ning Lu's aura became more and more terrifying. Although Ning Lu had yet to break through to the half-sage realm, his aura was already stronger than that of an ordinary half-sage martialist. All right. Chapter 1829. You're playing tricks. The evil slave's heart skipped a beat when he saw Ning Lu's change. He sensed that something was amiss. However, even though he sensed that something was amiss, the evil slave did not show it. Instead, he put on an indifferent and disdainful look and said coldly, "So what if you've advanced to the sage realm? I can still kill you easily. Aren't you afraid of biting your tongue when you talk big? I'd like to see how you're going to kill me easily today," Ning Lu said in a deep voice as he stared coldly at the evil slave. "I said I'll kill you, so I'll definitely kill you." The evil slave's lips curled up slightly. He then melted into the void and disappeared. "You'll have to ask for my opinion if you want to deal with Ning Yu." As soon as the evil slave disappeared, Ning Lu knew what he was going to do. In order to kill the evil slave, Ning Yu had poured all the vitality in his body into his own body. It would be extremely difficult for him to even block a single attack from the evil slave, let alone fight him. How could Ning Lu let the evil slave deal with Ningyu at a time like this? Whoosh! As soon as the evil slave disappeared, Ning Lu tore open the void and dove in. Die! The evil slave disappeared quickly and reappeared just as quickly. Almost instantly, the evil slave appeared in front of Ningyu. He clenched his right fist and threw a punch at Ningyu's head. The evil slave's punch was extremely powerful. If Ningyu was unlucky enough to be hit in the head, his head would probably explode in half. Would that really happen? The answer was obviously no. Ningyu did not even look at the fist that was about to land on his head. Absolute confidence. Rather than saying that Ningyu was confident in himself, it was better to say that he had absolute confidence in Ning Lu. As it turned out, Ningyu's confidence was not misplaced. In the nick of time, Ning Lu suddenly tore open the void and appeared in front of Ningyu, blocking the evil slave's powerful attack for Ningyu. Bang! The two fists collided. A crisp sound rang out as the two figures retreated rapidly. On the surface, Ning Lu and the evil slave seemed to be evenly matched. Neither of them could do anything to the other. Uft! However, as the evil slave was retreating, he suddenly felt something sweet in his throat and spat out a mouthful of blood. The fiendish slave spat out a mouthful of blood, indicating that he had been defeated in this exchange. However, the evil slave was not someone who would admit defeat easily. Although he was at a disadvantage in the first exchange, he was not afraid of Ning Lu. More accurately, the evil slave still believed that he could kill Ning Lu. If you anger me, not even God can save you today. This time, the evil slave was truly enraged. He decided to use the forbidden technique. The evil slave must be that. The evil slave must have a certain strength. The evil slave must not have been defeated. Out of the first 9 matches, 2 of them had been won by the evil slave using a forbidden technique. The evil slave had thought that this battle would be an easy one, and that there would be no need for him to use the taboo technique. However, it seemed that he had been wrong. The Lu, Ning, it, that the, long, Ning, Lu, not far away, the one-horned monster nodded when he saw the evil slave's actions. At first, the one-horned monster did not think that the evil slave would be able to use the forbidden skill. However, as the battle progressed, the one-horned monster realized that he had wrongly accused Ningyu and Ning Lu. However, as the battle progressed, the one-horned monster knew that he had wronged Ningyu and Ning Lu. The fact that they could force the evil slave to use the forbidden skill was enough to show how powerful they were. The fact that they could force the evil slave to use the forbidden skill was enough to show how powerful they were. Should I step in and stop them? The one-horned monster frowned, wondering if he should stop the evil slave. The battle with the evil slave was only the first test for Ningyu and Ning Lu. The one-horned monster did not want Ningyu and Ning Lu to be killed. His original intention was to test Ningyu and Ning Lu's true combat strength. Now that the evil slave had used the forbidden skill, the one-horned monster was really afraid that Ningyu and Ning Lu would be killed. The one-horned monster had already determined Ningyu and Ning Lu's true combat strength. Among Sky Supremes, they could be described as ridiculously strong. Under such circumstances, the one-horned monster naturally did not want Ning Lu and Ningyu to be killed. However, even though the one-horned monster wanted to stop them, he did not move. After all, barging into the arena was no joke. Right, didn't the four-horned monster say that he would come? Why is he nowhere to be seen? The one-horned monster looked around, trying to find the four-horned monster. It was the four-horned monster who had sent him to intercept Ningyu and Ning Lu. It was also the four-horned monster's idea to fight the evil slave in the first test. The four-horned monster had said that he would rush over immediately when Ningyu and Ning Lu were fighting the evil slave. Who would have thought that the four-horned monster would not appear even though the outcome of the fight was almost decided? Rumble. While the one-horned monster was still trying to contact the four-horned monster, Ning Lu and the evil slave had already started fighting on the round arena. Compared to the previous fight, this fight was even more exciting. But while it was exciting, the battle situation had undergone an earth-shattering change. It was not the evil slave who had the upper hand, but Ning Lu who had the upper hand, forcing the evil slave to retreat step by step. At this rate, it wouldn't be long before the vile slave would be killed by a powerful attack. At first, the one-horned monster was worried about the safety of Ningyu and Ninglu. Now he was worried about the evil slave's safety. The evil slave's 9 consecutive victories were enough to show how important he was to the organization. If such an important person were to die in a low-level realm like the immortal spirit realm, the one-horned monster would have to bear some responsibility. How troublesome! The 2 changes in his mental state gave the one-horned monster a headache. Although it was a headache, the one-horned monster did not dare not report this to the higher-ups. He continued to contact the four-horned monster, hoping that he could contact the four-horned monster before the evil slave was killed. To Ning Lu, the four-horned monster and the one-horned monster were not important. At this moment, the most important thing to him was to kill the evil slave as soon as possible. The evil slave was very powerful. If he was killed any later, Ningyu would be in more danger. After all, Ningyu did not have much combat power at the moment. If the evil slave risked his life to attack Ningyu, Ningyu would not be able to get away with it. Die. Ning Lu's eyes turned cold when he thought of this, and his body shot out at a terrifying speed. Humph. The evil slave sensed that something was wrong the moment Ning Lu shot out. However, the evil slave was very calm. He waved his hands repeatedly, trying to resist Ning Lu's attack. It's already very good that he has lasted until now. At the same time, the blue-clothed cultivator frowned and muttered in the air. Yes, the fact that the 2 of them could fight the evil slave until now is enough to prove their strength. There were 2 cultivators standing beside the blue-clothed cultivator. One was a white-clothed cultivator, and the other was about the same age as Ningyu. When the white-clothed cultivator heard the blue-clothed cultivator's words, the white-clothed cultivator asked, "Do you want me to save them?" Chapter 1830. The evil slave is done for. The white-robed cultivator was slightly stunned. His face was filled with disbelief. From the white-robed cultivator's point of view, although the evil slave seemed to be at a disadvantage, it was all based on the premise that the evil slave had not used the forbidden skill. Now that the evil slave had used the forbidden skill, it was unlikely that he would fail. However, the blue-robed cultivator's judgment was surprisingly accurate. He had never failed in a battle that he had judged. In other words, if the blue-robed cultivator said that the evil slave was done for, then the evil slave was definitely done for. Uft. As expected, the sound of blood being spat out could be heard from the arena not long after the blue-robed cultivator finished speaking. The evil slave spat out a mouthful of blood in the arena. He looked extremely weak. As for Ning Lu, who was not far away from the evil slave, his body was bent slightly as he panted heavily. It was obvious that it was not that Ning Lu did not want to kill the evil slave, but that he had already lost most of his combat strength. Actually, it was not impossible to kill the evil slave by force, but it was not worth it. This was because the evil slave might bite back at him if he was not careful. After all, the evil slave was a mid-stage Saint Martial artist. His self-destruction was still very powerful. How is this possible? The evil slave's eyes were unfocused. The defeat in the battle had directly caused his spirit to dissipate. After this battle, even if Ning Lu did not kill the evil slave would not have such combat strength in the future. Congratulations on passing the first round of the test. Seeing that the outcome of the battle had been decided, the one-horned monster flew directly to the arena and said to Ning Lu and Ningyu, You have half an hour to prepare. The second round of the test will begin in half an hour. Ning, Lu, and Ning, you could not be bothered with the one-horned monster. They sat down cross-legged and took out immortal crystals from their robes to consume and recuperate. They would only have a chance of passing the second round of the test if their strength had recovered to its peak. Otherwise, no matter how easy the second round of the test was, they could still fail miserably. Whoosh! However, Ning Yu and Ning Lu had only recuperated for a dozen minutes when the void above their heads suddenly split open. 3 cultivators slowly flew out from the crack in the void. Whoosh! Seeing the 3 cultivators suddenly appear, Ning Yu and Ning Lu immediately stopped recuperating and looked at each other warily. Hee, don't be nervous. I mean you no harm. The 3 martial artists who suddenly appeared were none other than the martial artist in blue and the martial artist in white. After the blue-clothed cultivator landed on the arena, he smiled faintly and said, "You were able to defeat the evil slaves. This means that your talent is very strong. I intend to nurture you well. Who are you? Why are you training us?" Ning Yu frowned and asked in a deep voice. For some reason, Ning Yu did not feel the slightest yuan qi fluctuation from the blue-clothed and white-clothed martial artists. The only person who made Ning Yu feel a fluctuation of yuan qi was the martial artist, who was about his age. That martial artist was at the middle stage of the sage realm, although he could not determine the cultivations of the warriors in blue and white. Ning Yu had reason to believe that their cultivations had surpassed the sage realm. "I'm sorry, I may not have been clear enough." The cultivator in blue shrugged his shoulders, feeling slightly embarrassed. He said, "Before I nurture you, you have to pass 3 tests. The first test is to defeat the evil slaves. Congratulations, you have completed it. As for the second test," at this point, the warrior in blue paused for a moment. His eyes swept over the martial artist who was about the same age as Ning Yu and continued, "I originally wanted you to have a spar, but now I've changed my plan. I've decided to let you guard the Wu Hung Cave and help me get rid of those cats and dogs who barge into the Wu Hung Cave. I want to know who you are." Ning Yu did not refuse the warrior in blue and asked instead, "I would like to know who you are." Ning Yu did not reject the blue-clad cultivator. Ning Yu knew this. Ning Yu just wanted to understand the warrior in blue and the others as much as possible and understand the Wu Hung Cave. In fact, staying here might be more advantageous for Ning Yu and the others than leaving the Wu Hung Cave. After all, there were Song Wu, Lu Chuanji, and the peerless experts from the Pill Emperor City. After all, there were Song Wu, Lu Chuanji, and the peerless experts from the Pill Emperor City. As for staying in the Wu Hung Cave, although Xiao Chen did not know what the blue-clothed cultivators were planning, his safety was guaranteed for a short period of time. After the 3 tests are completed, I will naturally tell you who I am. As he spoke, the cultivator in blue waved his hand at Ning Yu and the others. "Xiao! Xiao! Xiao!" The blue-clothed martial artist seemed to casually wave his hand, but in reality it contained a terrifying yuan qi gale. 3 terrifying gusts of yuan qi carried Ning Yu, Ning Lu, and the peerless genius of the devil's spirit realm. Kacha! Moreover, the void suddenly split open. Before Ning Yu and the other 2 could react, they were brought into the void by the yuan qi gale. Isn't this test a little too easy? After Ning Yu and the rest left, the white-clothed martial artist furrowed his brows and asked, "With the battle prowess of the 3 of them, there might not be any martial artists who can contend with them in the Wu Hung Cave, right? Is it simple? I don't think so." The blue-clothed martial artist smiled and did not directly answer the white-clothed martial artist's words. The white-clothed martial artist knew that there were some things that could be asked and some things that were best not to be asked. Since the blue-clothed martial artist did not say, then he would not go and annoy him. In any case, if something happened, the blue-clothed martial artist would cover for it. The organization would not blame him at all. Furthermore, it was rare for the blue-clothed martial artist to take a fancy to two Sky Supreme martial artists. There was no need for him to go against the blue-clothed martial artist. Thinking of this, the white-clothed martial artist quietly exerted force in his right hand and crushed a crystal ball. Humph. So what if I openly snatched people in your territory? If you came personally, I might give you some face, but you did not dare to show your face, so I could only kindly accept these two martial artists. How could the white-clothed martial artist's small actions be hidden from the blue-clothed martial artist? However, the blue-clothed martial artist did not want to lower himself to the same level as the white-clothed martial artist, because the white-clothed martial artist's position in the organization was too far apart from his. Unless the white-clothed martial artist's master came, he would be the absolute upper echelon in the Wu-Hung Cave. Could it be that the four-horned monster's absence has something to do with the blue-clothed martial artist? The one-horned monster did not seem to make any movements on the surface, but in fact his heart was spinning rapidly. Strictly speaking, he, the four-horned monster, and the white-clothed martial artist belonged to the same faction, while the blue-clothed martial artist belonged to another faction. Generally speaking, the battle between the two factions would definitely not affect a small place like the celestial spirit realm. Who would have thought that the blue-clothed martial artist would suddenly descend and threaten to take away Ningyu and Ning Lu to properly groom them? This situation naturally shocked the one-horned monster. Shock aside, the one-horned monster did not forget to continue contacting the four-horned monster. Chapter 1831. Bang, bang. Wu-Hung Cave. In the two passageways, not too far from the cave entrance, two crisp voices suddenly rang out. Damn it! What bad luck! Immediately after, two clear and crisp sounds rang out, followed by two flustered and exasperated curses. There was no doubt that the two exasperated people were Ningyu and Ning Lu. As their strength had not yet recovered to its peak state, this fall really caused Ningyu and Ning Lu a lot of pain. Anyway, this place is not too far from the Wu-Hung Cave entrance. In my opinion, we might as well kill our way out. Rubbing his slightly swollen buttocks, Ning Lu said fiercely, such a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But if we miss it, don't think there will be a next time. Ignorant. Ningyu rolled his eyes and said, Since the martial artist in blue dares to send us here, it means that he has absolute confidence to control us. Also, don't you think the martial artist in blue is very special? Very special. Ning Lu was slightly stunned and fell into deep thought. The more he thought, the more solemn Ning Lu's face became. In the end, Ning Lu even couldn't help but suck in a cold breath. From the beginning, Ning Lu felt that the martial artist in blue was not simple, but he did not pay too much attention to the martial artist in blue. Instead, he was thinking about how to leave and how to escape smoothly. Now, listening to Ningyu, he carefully thought about it again. Do you think the martial artist in blue really wants to train us? Ningyu asked again. It's hard to say. Ning Lu shook his head, indicating that he could not tell. This is the strength of the martial artist in blue, Ningyu said in a deep voice. What we have to do is to guard here, take one step at a time, swoosh. Before Ningyu's voice fell completely, there were two martial artists galloping in front of him. Be careful. Looking at the two martial artists rushing towards him, Ningyu's face changed slightly and he hurriedly said, One of them is Song Wu. Damn, it's really Song Wu. Ning Lu clenched his fists and couldn't help but swear. Ningyu? Ever since the teleportation array was forced to stop, Song Wu had used a secret technique to leave the Half-Cloud Mountain and quickly return to the Pill Emperor City. Arriving at the Alchemy Imperial City, Song Wu told the course of events to Gong Yangqing at the first possible moment. After knowing what had happened, Gong Yangqing was immediately enraged. Even though he was furious, Gong Yangqing did not lose his rationality. He hurriedly found a martial practitioner who had descended from a higher plane with him and knew the art of divination. He asked that martial practitioner to divine the location of Ningyu and the little Qilin. There was also a small interlude in between. Cultivators who understood the art of divination almost suffered a backlash when they tried to divine Ningyu's fate. Fortunately, he gave up on Ningyu in time and turned to perform divination for the little Qilin. After a round of divination and wasting a long period of time, he finally calculated the exact location of little Qilin and the others. Wuheng Cave. To tell the truth, when he found out that little Qilin and the others were at the Wuheng Cave, Gong Yangqing was rather silent. Other people didn't know the ins and outs of the Wuheng Cave, but he, Gong Yangqing, was crystal clear. The forces of the Wuheng Cave in the higher planes were extremely terrifying. Since they established the Wuheng Cave in the immortal spirit realm and allowed little Qilin and the others to enter, it meant that there was a martial practitioner that the Wuheng Cave valued among little Qilin and the others. As for whether they valued Ningyu or little Qilin, Gong Yangqing was not particularly sure. However, after thinking it over, Gong Yangqing still decided to send Song Wu and another peerless powerhouse to make a trip to the Wuheng Cave. It was naturally good if they could bring little Qilin away. If they couldn't, there was no need to force it either. Gong Yangqing did not tell Song Wu and the other peerless powerhouse about the ins and outs of the Wuheng Cave. He just told them to guard the cave entrance and not to enter. Unexpectedly, Song Wu was eager to render meritorious service. He ignored Gong Yangqing's persuasion and directly entered the Wuheng Cave with the other powerhouse. The moment he entered the Wuheng Cave, Song Wu regretted it. His pinnacle saint realm cultivation was actually suppressed to the late phase heavenly sovereign realm. The other peerless powerhouse, Chininga, had her cultivation suppressed to peak sky supreme. Song Wu hesitated for a while, but in the end he still braced himself and entered the Wuheng Cave. After a period of advancing, there was finally light at the end of the tunnel, letting him run into Ningyu and Ning Lu, truly wearing out iron shoes in fruitless searching, finding what you're looking for without even looking for it. Looking at the two familiar figures in front, Song Wu was so excited that he almost jumped up. Song Wu, where's the little Qilin you mentioned? Chuninga was not as excited as Song Wu. On the contrary, his expression was still a little solemn as he said in a deep voice, "Don't forget our goal. We're here to find little Qilin, not to find these two sky supreme martial artists." What's the hurry? Finding the two of them? Would we still have to worry about not being able to find little Qilin? Song Wu waved his hand and said a little disapprovingly, "In Song Wu's view, since they found Ningyu and Ning Lu, then the little Qilin was definitely not far from here. As long as they took down Ningyu and Ning Lu, they would definitely be able to force out the little Qilin's whereabouts. Then what are you still standing there for? Hurry up and go." Channinga did things swiftly and decisively. He did not want to waste time here, so he directly rushed out and rushed towards Ning Lu. Not knowing why, after entering the Wuheng Cave, Channinga kept feeling that something wasn't quite right. Moreover, this feeling that something wasn't right was getting stronger and stronger. Therefore, Channinga only had one thought, and that was to capture the little Qilin as soon as possible and then leave the Wuheng Cave. As for the grudges between Song Wu and Ningyu, Channinga felt that there was no need for him to ask, nor was there a need for him to ask. "Don't worry, can a cooked duck still fly?" The corner of Song Wu's mouth rose into an arc as he leaped up and rushed towards Ningyu with an extremely terrifying speed. Song Wu and Channinga had a clear division of labor. Song Wu dealt with Ningyu, while Channinga dealt with Ning Lu. Be careful. Ning Yu did not let his guard down, just because Song Wu's cultivation was suppressed to the late-stage Sky Supreme. Instead, he became very solemn. Since Song Wu dared to enter the Wuheng Cave, it meant that he had some ability. Under such circumstances, how could Ning Yu relax? "I know what to do." Ning Lu's expression was also very solemn. In a flash, Ning Lu rushed out, directly choosing to clash head-on with Cheninga. Although his expression was solemn, Ning Lu was actually very confident in his own strength. No matter what, Ning Lu was also a world tree. No matter what Cheninga's cultivation was before, he was now just a peak sky supreme martial artist. Under the same cultivation, Ning Lu was not afraid of any martial artist. Rumble. A great battle instantly erupted. In the first move, Ningyu and the other three used their full strength. In the passageway that could not be considered too big, dust flew and gravel scattered. Swoosh! Swoosh! After one move, Ningyu and the others retreated one after another. How can he be so strong? Song Wu's eyes stared at Ningyu, his fists tightly clenched, his face full of surprise. Song Wu knew that Ningyu was very strong, but he did not expect that Ningyu was strong to this extent. Under the same cultivation, Song Wu was actually vaguely at a disadvantage. Change of strategy, capture Ningyu first. Chapter 1832. Understood. Chuninga wasn't a hothead. He was clear that if he and Song Wu split up to deal with Ningyu and Ninglu, they might not be able to capture the other party in a short time. And this was the Wuhang Cave. Before they came, Gong Yangqing had warned them not to come in. In order to capture the little Qilin in advance, they took the risk to come in, although their cultivation was only suppressed to the Sky Supreme Realm. Who knew what kind of danger they would encounter next? Therefore, to Cheninga, controlling Ningyu as soon as possible, then finding the little Qilin and taking it away was the way to go. Desolate Sky Palm. Cheninga's eyes turned cold as he waved his hands repeatedly. In an instant, two horrifying palm prints separated from his palms. The palm prints didn't look especially big. They were just slightly bigger than Cheninga's palm. However, the horrifying energy contained in the palm prints made Ningyu and Ning Lu suck in a breath of cold air. Heaven crippling leg. Seeing Cheninga send out two palm prints, Song Wu didn't stay idle. The energy in his sea of consciousness surged and gathered on his right foot. As the three words heaven crippling leg came out of his mouth, Cheninga's right foot suddenly enlarged and kicked at Ningyu at an extremely shocking speed. Whether it was the desolate sky palm or the heaven crippling leg, they only had one target. That was Ningyu. Since they had discussed to deal with Ningyu together, then Song Wu and Cheninga would definitely have the same target. As for Ning Lu, he was put aside by the two of them. Damn it! Looking at the palm prints and the huge right foot that were approaching him, Ning Yu couldn't help but curse. Cursing was one thing, but Ning Yu was very clear about what he should do now. Fight head-on? Ning Yu wasn't that stupid. In a one-on-one, he might be able to contend with Song Wu or Cheninga. But in a one-on-two, Ning Yu was very clear that he had no chance of winning. Of the 36 stratagems, running is the best. In a moment of desperation, Ning Yu hurriedly turned his head around and flashed towards the other passageway of the Wuhang Cave. He knew that he was no match for the enemy, but he still braced himself and charged forward. This was not bravery, but stupidity. Ning, you did not want to die for no reason. He only had one thought right now, and that was to think of a way to avoid Song Wu and Cheninga's attacks, and buy enough time for Ning Lu. In that kind of situation, Ning Lu could have helped Ningyu, but Ningyu didn't let him, because Ningyu knew very well that in a one-on-one fight, he and Ning Lu had almost no chance of winning. It was nothing more than holding on a little longer. In order to solve this big problem once and for all, Ning Lu could only make a strong move and heavily injure Song Wu or Cheninga. Apart from this method, Ning Yu couldn't think of any other useful methods. However, this method was very risky. Once Ning Yu was captured by Song Wu and Cheninga, then even if Ning Lu could use some kind of powerful attack, it would be of no use. Tell me where the little Qilin is, and I can consider letting you live. Song Wu thought that he had caught Ningyu, so his lips curled up and he said, "The little Qilin's life is the little Qilin's, but your life is yours. You can't give up your life for the little Qilin. Do you really think you have me?" After fleeing for a while, when Ningyu saw a young martial artist standing in front of another passageway, he suddenly calmed down. "Of course," Song Wu said proudly. "I saw that you have nothing to do, so I specially found someone for you to practice with." Ningyu shrugged at the martial artist in front of the passageway and said, "I'll deal with the late-stage Sky Supreme Martial Artist, and you deal with the peak-stage Sky Supreme Martial Artist. Let's see who gets rid of the other first. How about it?" "No problem." The young martial artist hesitated slightly, then nodded and said, "If you lose, I want you to promise me one thing." As he spoke, the young martial artist rushed out like a cheetah. The young martial artist's target was Chuninga. As for Song Wu, the young martial artist left him to Ningyu. "That's easy." Ningyu responded to the young martial artist, then stopped in place, clenched his fists, and fiercely punched at Song Wu's right foot. Fist against foot. No matter how one looked at it, Ningyu was at a disadvantage. However, if Song Wu wanted to defeat Ningyu alone, it would not be that easy. Although outside the Wuheng Cave, Song Wu could casually kill Ningyu. But this was the Wuheng Cave, and Song Wu's cultivation was suppressed to the late-stage Sky Supreme. It could be said that if Song Wu did not have a trump card that he brought down from a high-grade plane, he might not even be Ningyu's opponent. Bang! The fist and foot collided, and a crisp sound rang out. Then, Ningyu and Song Wu both retreated several meters. Pucci! As soon as Ningyu and Song Wu landed, the outcome of the battle on the other side was decided. The young martial artist punched Chen Inga's cheek, directly knocking out several of Chen Inga's teeth. Chen Inga spat out a mouthful of blood, and his aura began to rapidly decline. Not long after, Chen Inga's aura, which had already fallen to the peak Sky Supreme level, fell again. Now, Chen Inga's aura was only at the early stage Sky Supreme level. Gulp! Ningyu swallowed a mouthful of saliva on the spot. Wasn't this too showy? What a showy display! No matter what, Chen Inga was also a peak Saint Realm martial artist. Although his cultivation had fallen to the peak Sky Supreme level due to the Wuheng Cave suppression, his combat strength was still very strong. If the young martial artist from the demon spirit realm could easily defeat Chen Inga, didn't that mean that it would be very easy for him to defeat him? The more he thought about it, the more terrified Ningyu felt. So much so that Ningyu vaguely felt that he had escaped a calamity. With the young martial artist's combat strength, if they fought on the stage, he would definitely be the one to lose. Fortunately, the blue-clothed martial artist changed the assessment. Otherwise, he and Ning Lu would both be in trouble. I won. After defeating Chen Inga, the young martial artist didn't even look at him and directly walked toward Ningyu. A moment later, the young martial artist came before Ningyu and faintly said, "You promised me a condition. I want to know if it still counts." Swish! As soon as the young martial artist's voice fell, a figure suddenly appeared from afar. Needless to say, that figure was Ning Lu. What surprised Ningyu was Ning Lu's current cultivation. Initial Saint Realm. Ningyu knew that Ning Lu was using his trump card, but he didn't expect that Ning Lu could raise his cultivation to the Initial Saint Realm. One must know that it was terrifyingly difficult to raise from the peak Sky Supreme to the Initial Saint Realm. Moreover, Ningyu knew that Ning Lu's Initial Saint Realm was a genuine Initial Saint Realm. He didn't use a secret technique to forcibly raise his cultivation to the Initial Saint Realm. In other words, Ning Lu had really advanced to the Initial Saint Realm. Stimulate the body, stimulate all the potential in the body, and forcibly raise one's cultivation level. Chapter 1833. Rotting and Dying. Hearing the young warrior's words, Ning Yu was stunned at first. Then, he hurriedly looked at Ning Lu. At the same time, his perception surged out and entered Ning Lu's body. Hiss! Ning Yu sucked in a breath of cold air as soon as he did so. Although Ning Yu didn't know what Ning Lu had experienced to forcibly raise his cultivation to the early stage of sage, Ning Yu was very clear that Ning Lu's profound qi had begun to leak. The leaking of profound qi meant that Ning Lu couldn't hold on for long at the early stage of sage. To be honest, your friend's physique is so strong that I envy him. With his physique, he should be able to hold on for 3 days. The young warrior stared at Ning Lu carefully again and said, After 3 days, his cultivation will gradually decline, and the speed of profound qi leakage will reach the extreme. Alas! Ning Yu looked at Ning Lu and opened his mouth. He wanted to say something, but he finally closed it and didn't say anything. Since Ning Lu had chosen to do this, it was meaningless for Ning Yu to say anything else. The only thing he could do now was to find a way to help Ning Lu recover as soon as possible. Wait here. I'll go and catch Songwu. Ning Lu was very calm. He smiled at Ning Yu. Then he jumped up and rushed to Songwu, who was trying to escape. Oh my God! Song Wu wanted to escape secretly while Ning Yu and the others were talking. He didn't expect to be found by Ning Lu. In a moment of desperation, Song Wu swore and kicked Chininga, sending Chininga towards Ning Road. Die! Ning Lu's target was Song Wu. He didn't care about Chininga's life. While moving forward, Ning Lu's right fist turned into a claw and directly pierced into Chininga's heart. Buzz! In just a moment, Chininga's body quickly shriveled. It could be seen that Ning Lu had already swallowed Chininga. Gulp! Seeing that Chininga was instantly swallowed by Ning Lu, the young warrior swallowed his saliva instead of Ning Yu. After the young martial artist swallowed his saliva, he looked at Ning Lu and then at Ning Yu. His eyes shone brightly. Bang! At this moment, Ning Lu grabbed Songwu with his right hand and suddenly threw him in front of Ning Yu. His body hit the ground with a crisp sound. The pain from his body caused Song Wu's expression to turn ferocious. Let me give you a piece of advice. Release me as soon as possible. Otherwise, you'll become enemies with Grandmaster Ram. Song Wu glared at Ning Yu and said coldly, not to mention those in the celestial spirit realm, anyone who dares to offend Master Ram will not have a good ending even in the higher planes. Gotcha! How could Ning Yu fall for Song Wu's trick? Song Wu's voice had yet to fade when Ning Yu raised his right leg and kicked heavily on Song Wu's chest. This kick from Ning Yu directly broke several of Song Wu's ribs. The heart-wrenching pain from his chest made Song Wu completely speechless. Song Wu knew that he was screwed. If he infuriated Ning Yu, his outcome would most likely be the same as Chininga, being sucked dry. Song Wu was very clear that the reason why Ning Yu kept him alive was definitely because he wanted to know the situation outside. Ning Yu hiding inside the Wuheng cave and not daring to go out showed that he did not understand the situation outside and was afraid that he would encounter danger after going out. Under this kind of situation, Song Wu's mind gradually became active. As long as he dealt with it carefully, he might be able to survive. I'll ask you a few questions next. I advise you to answer honestly. Otherwise, you should know the consequences. Ning Yu placed his right foot on Song Wu's neck and said coldly, First, what kind of status does Gong Yangqing have in the high-order plane? Why are the few of you obedient to his words? Master Gong Yangqing is a Tier 10 alchemy sovereign. Furthermore, he's an elder of a medium-sized city's alchemy association in a high-order plane. Song Wu did not dare to dally and answered honestly. Second question. Apart from you and Chininga, how many other peak sage martial artists did Gong Yangqing bring down? Ning Yu continued to ask. Reaching Ning Yu's level, late-stage sage martial artists were already unable to pose any substantial threat to him. Even if there was no way to contend with late-stage sage martial artists, escaping was not too difficult either. Only peak sage martial artists. Ning Yu could not even contend with them. Escaping was even more nonsense. There are also 2 mysterious martial artists. As for their cultivation, they should be grand completion sage realm. Song Wu gritted his teeth as if he had made a very big decision and said, "You're lying to me?" Ning Yu said coldly, "Because of the existence of the plane barrier, it's impossible for there to be grand completion sage realm martial artists in the celestial spirit realm. Master Gong Yangqing has the origin energy," Song Wu explained. Whoosh! Song Wu's words not only shocked Ning Yu and Ning Lu, but even the young martial artist from the demon spirit realm revealed a look of surprise. The origin energy could be said to be the most precious thing in the celestial spirit realm. The origin energy had many uses. It could escape the detection of the plane barrier and allow a Sky Supreme martial artist to instantly advance to the sage realm. Are you serious? Ning Yu stared at Song Wu, hoping to find some clues from his eyes. Absolutely. Song Wu's eyes did not dodge at all as he said solemnly, "Ning Yu, you promised me a condition just now." The young martial artist's eyes flickered as he looked at Ning Yu and said, "This condition is that you help me obtain the origin energy of the Pale Emperor City." Pucci. Hearing the young martial artist's words, Ning Yu almost spat out a mouthful of old blood. That was the origin energy, something that countless forces and experts would do anything to get their hands on. He wanted him to snatch Gong Yangqing's origin energy? How could the young martial artist say such a thing? "I do want to snatch the origin energy, but I don't have the strength to do so." Ning Yu rolled his eyes and said, "Not to mention me, even if you and I joined forces, we would definitely not be able to snatch the origin energy from Gong Yangqing. It's not that I don't want to help you, but I advise you to give up as soon as possible. Snatching the origin energy is not only my request, but also your friend's request." The young martial artist seemed to have guessed that Ning Yu would say such a thing. He was not angry and continued, "Your friend has used a secret technique and won't be able to hold on for long. If there's no large amount of energy injected into his body in 3 days, he might even turn into a dried corpse." Ning Yu was silent. Although the young martial artist said it rather bluntly, Ning Yu was very clear. Things were really so terrible. Perhaps he could find a lot of energy in 3 days' time, but all the energy was not as useful as the origin energy. Thinking about it, Ning Yu said, "Want to make me snatch Gong Yangqing's origin energy is also not impossible. But before that, we have to think of a way to leave the Wuhang Cave. If there's no way to even leave the Wuhang Cave, then no matter how much you say, it's useless. The matter of leaving the Wuhang Cave, leave it to me. I have a way to leave the Wuhang Cave." Chapter 1834. You have a way to leave the Wuhang Cave. Ning Yu opened his mouth slightly and looked at the young martial artist in disbelief. Ning Yu was well aware of the strength of the martial artist in blue. Even if the young martial artist advanced to the late stage of the Saint Realm, he wouldn't be able to escape from the martial artist in blue, let alone the intermediate stage of the Saint Realm. Moreover, the one-horned monster was still in the Wuhang Cave. At this time, the young martial artist said he had a way to leave the Wuhang Cave. Was he crazy? "I do have a way to leave the Wuhang Cave, but the prerequisite is that you must improve your cultivation to the early stage of the Saint Realm, or at least the peak Sky Supreme." Ning Yu's emotional changes were completely seen by the young martial artist. He seemed to have guessed that Ning Yu wouldn't believe him, so he paused for a moment and then explained, "I have insider information that the martial artist in blue and the martial artist in white will leave the Wuhang Cave soon, so we only need to deal with the one-horned monster." "You have insider information?" Ning Yu stared at the young martial artist again, hoping to find some clues from his eyes. But unfortunately, the young martial artist's expression remained the same, without the slightest fluctuation. You don't need to worry about that. You just need to improve your cultivation to the early stage of the Saint Realm within a limited time. The young martial artist waved his hand and said in a deep voice, "This matter is very important to me, and I hope you can do your best." "I will naturally do my best." Ningyu frowned slightly and said, "But I can't say whether I can reach the early stage of the Saint Realm. After all, swoosh!" Before Ningyu's voice died away, the young martial artist took out a blood-red elixir from his arms. "This is the blood-devouring elixir. With your current late-stage sky supreme cultivation, if you swallow and refine it, you will have a 90% chance of reaching the early stage of the Saint Realm." Throwing the elixir to Ningyu, the young martial artist said, "Next, I will fight with Song Wu to help you cover up, and you have 2 hours to cultivate." Swish! As he spoke, the young martial artist rushed out, grabbed Song Wu, and flew towards another passage. "Right, what's your name?" Ningyu asked as he caught the blood-devouring pill thrown by the young cultivator. "Zhao Hang." The young warrior responded without turning his head, then disappeared from the sight of Ningyu and Ning Lu. "Let me have a look at the pill." Just as Zhao Hang left, Ning Lu came to Ningyu's side. He said in a deep voice, "The blood-devouring pill is a kind of medicinal pill unique to the demonic spirit realm. Even a sage cultivator would have excellent effects if they consumed it." Ning Lu's meaning was clear. There was no reason for Zhao Hang to hand over such a precious pill to Ningyu. As for asking Ningyu to help him snatch Gong Yangqing's origin energy, sorry, Ning Lu didn't really believe it from the bottom of his heart. Here, Ningyu knew that Ning Lu was experienced in inspecting pills, so he didn't hesitate and immediately threw the blood-devouring pill to Ning Lu. To be honest, even Ningyu felt that what had just happened was a little unbelievable. There was definitely something wrong with things that were out of the ordinary. Zhao Hang helped him like this, and it was under the premise that there were no restrictions. No matter how he looked at it, there was something wrong. Perhaps Zhao Hang really wanted him to help snatch Gong Yangqing's origin energy. But before he confirmed it, Ningyu didn't dare to joke around. Therefore, it was imperative to inspect the blood-devouring pill. Buzz! After receiving the blood-devouring pill from Ningyu, Ning Lu's mind surged. He even forced out a drop of blood essence and dripped it on the blood-devouring pill. Ning Lu was a world tree, so his blood had a certain purifying effect on pills. It could be said that if Zhao Hang really did something to the blood-devouring pill, he definitely wouldn't be able to hide it from Ning Lu's blood. No problem. After inspecting for a full 10 minutes, Ning Lu returned the blood-devouring pill to Ningyu. Through Ning Lu's inspection, he found that the blood-devouring pill hadn't been tampered with. "Then protect me. I'll swallow the blood-devouring pill now and strive to break through to the early-stage sage realm in 2 hours." Ningyu's face turned cold as he said in a cold voice. Now that things had come to this, Ningyu couldn't care less about whether his cultivation was stable or not. In the current situation, as long as he could leave the Wuhan cave, everything would be fine. "You might be disappointed about this." Ning Lu shook his head and said, "The energy contained in the blood-devouring pill can let an ordinary late-stage sky supreme advance to the early-stage sage realm. But for you, it can only let you advance to the peak of the sky supreme at most. You can't even reach the half-step sage realm." This, Ningyu was dumbfounded. He hurriedly used his perception and began to inspect the energy in the blood-devouring pill. "I can't believe it." This inspection made Ningyu curse. Just as Ning Lu said, the energy contained in the blood-devouring pill could let an ordinary late-stage sky supreme advance to the early-stage sage realm. But for him, it could only let him advance to the peak of the sky supreme at most. "Whatever, it's good enough if I can advance to the peak of the sky supreme." Ningyu took a deep breath and threw away all the distracting thoughts in his mind. Then he sat cross-legged on the ground and threw the blood-devouring pill into his mouth and began to chew. Crack! As a cracking sound came from Ning Yu's mouth, the blood-devouring pill was bitten in half by Ning Yu. A complete blood-devouring pill would not automatically melt, but after being bitten in half by Ning Yu, it began to melt automatically. Moreover, the melted blood-devouring pill entered Ning Yu's body through his throat. Ning Yu waved his hands repeatedly and operated the spirit transformation art to the extreme. He began to refine the melted blood-devouring pill. Buzz! The effect of the blood-devouring pill was exceptionally good. Not long after he swallowed and refined it, Ning Yu felt a change in his sea of consciousness. According to this situation, it wouldn't even take 2 hours for Ning Yu to reach the pinnacle heavenly sovereign realm from the late phase heavenly sovereign realm. While Ning Yu was trying his best to break through to the peak of the sky supreme, Ning Lu secretly spat out a mouthful of blood. Forcibly raising his cultivation to the early stage sage was extremely harmful to Ning Lu. Zhao Hang said that Ning Lu could last 3 days, which was actually not a problem. But in order to check the blood-devouring pill, Ning Lu used another drop of essence blood, which meant that he could not last for 3 days. In other words, from now on, the rate at which Ning Lu's essence energy leaked was starting to increase. It was terrifyingly fast. In a short period of time, Ning Lu looked like he had aged a little. At the same time, in another passageway, Zhao Hang suddenly stopped and threw Song Wu to the ground. What's going on? Why did I lose contact with the blood-devouring pill? Zhao Hang frowned. He vaguely felt that something was wrong. He did not give Ning Yu the blood-devouring pill to let Ning Yu break through to the sage realm so that Ning Yu could take advantage of it. Although he had never thought of controlling Ning Yu, it was necessary to leave something in the blood-devouring pill to ensure that he could find Ning Yu at any time after leaving the Wuhan cave. But now, Zhao Hang was shocked to find that he had lost contact with the blood-devouring pill. Chapter 1835. Ning Yu only has late-stage sky, supreme, cultivation. He shouldn't have the means to find the thing I left in the blood-devouring pill. Zhao Hang's brows knitted together, feeling very puzzled. There were only 2 people there. One was Ning Yu, the other was Ning Lu. Since it was not Ning Yu, then it must be Ning Lu. But Zhao Hang really could not understand how Ning Lu could find the thing he left in the blood-devouring pill with a heavily injured body and destroy it. Since he could not understand, Zhao Hang might as well not think about it anymore. Zhao Hang was not a hothead. He needed Ning Yu's help and could not fall out with Ning Yu now. Gong Yangqing's source energy, he was determined to obtain it. Come and tell me, just where did Gong Yangqing put the source energy? Taking a deep breath, Zhao Hang's gaze shifted to Song Wu and said coldly. Being stared at by Zhao Hang's cold gaze, Song Wu felt a little uncomfortable all over. But facing Zhao Hang, Song Wu felt safer than facing Ning Yu and Ning Lu. At least, Zhao Hang did not have any enmity towards him. His life and death, Zhao Hang did not care much about it. Who knew? He might have a way to escape from Zhao Hang here. Crash! At the same time, outside the Wuhan cave, the void suddenly split open. A group of 3 martial artists walked out of the void. If there were people from Pill Emperor City here, they would definitely discover that the old man in the lead was none other than the Alchemy Union's president, Meng Chang'an. The current Meng Chang'an frowned slightly, his eyes flickering. No one knew what he was thinking about. As for the 2 early-stage Saint martial artists beside him, their expressions were slightly nervous. As people of the Alchemy Union, Sun Feng and Chang Tianmor, or less, knew the mysteries of the Wuhan cave. Martial artists who entered the Wuhan cave, no matter what cultivation level, no one could come out. Now that Meng Chang'an brought them to the front of the Wuhan cave. Could it be that he wanted to go in? At the thought that Meng Chang'an might want to enter the Wuhan cave, Sun Feng and Chang Tian became a little nervous. Sun Feng was the first to not hold back and was the first to say, "President Meng, are we really going to enter the Wuheng Cave?" "That's right. The Wuheng Cave is extremely dangerous. I don't think the thief would dare to go in." Chang Tian hurriedly agreed. "Can you see the three big words Wuheng Cave above the cave?" Meng Chang'an did not directly answer Sun Feng and Chang Tian's question. Sun Feng and Chang Tian were slightly taken aback. They looked at each other, then shook their heads at the same time and said, "I can't." "Since all of you can't see the three large words Everlasting Cave, do all of you think that thief can see it?" Meng Chang'an said indifferently, "Entering the Wuheng Cave is imperative. If you guys aren't willing to enter, I won't force you either." This, Sun Feng and Chang Tian hesitated. Although the two of them were the upper echelons of the Alchemy Union, Meng Chang'an was the president of the Alchemy Union. If they offended the president, would they have any good days ahead of them? Therefore, Sun Feng and Chang Tian were in a dilemma. On one hand, they didn't want to enter the Wuheng Cave. On the other hand, they were also afraid of offending Meng Chang'an, who would make things difficult for them in the future. Their conflicted expressions were vividly displayed on their faces. "I won't force you." Meng Chang'an waved his hand, then leaped into the Wuheng Cave. "If we die, so be it." Sun Feng and Chang Tian looked at each other, then followed Meng Chang'an into the Wuheng Cave. Boom! As soon as they entered the Wuheng Cave, Sun Feng and Chang Tian regretted it, because the Wuheng Cave gave them a very strong sense of oppression. If it was just the oppression, they would not regret it. Most importantly, after the oppression, they realized that their cultivation had dropped to the early stage Sky Supreme at the same time. Both of them were early stage sages, but in just a short period of time, they had both dropped to early stage Sky Supreme. They really couldn't accept this change. "President, you?" However, when their gazes fell on Meng Chang'an, the uneasiness in their hearts eased a little. There was no other reason. Meng Chang'an's cultivation had also dropped rapidly. Although his cultivation was still higher than theirs, he was only a peak Sky Supreme. Humans were like this. When something happened to them, they would panic. But when something happened to everyone, the panic in their hearts would lessen a lot. "The two of you follow behind me. Remember not to run around." Meng Chang'an's tone was solemn as he slowly walked forward. Sun Feng and Chang Tian were from the Alchemy Union and belonged to his faction. They did not have a good relationship with Gong Yangqing. Now that Gong Yangqing was powerful, Meng Chang'an did not want Sun Feng and Chang Tian to join him. Therefore, the task of protecting Sun Feng and Chang Tian could only be done by Meng Chang'an. Whoosh! Not long after Meng Chang'an and the others entered the Wuheng Cave, the void in front of the Wuheng Cave cracked again. This time, only one martial artist appeared. This martial artist's cultivation was very terrifying, reaching the peak sage realm. Speaking of which, Elder Tianji was very familiar with this martial artist, because he was the person who left the seal in Elder Tianji's body. The Jin family's strongest expert, Jin Qilong, who was at the peak sage realm. At this time, Jin Qilong's expression was very ugly to the extreme. Originally, Jin Qilong came to Half Cloud Mountain to watch the show, but who would have thought that he would find Elder Tianji's aura here? Combined with the Jin family's death in Four Corner City, Jin Qilong instantly understood. The Jin family members who died in Four Corner City were definitely related to Elder Tianji, they all. And Elder Tianji's aura vanished when it reached this cave entrance, indicating that Elder Tianji, they all entered the cave, truly wearing out iron shoes in fruitless searching, only to find it without even looking for it. His eyes were cold. Jin Qilong practically did not have any hesitation, leaping into the Wuheng Cave. Whoosh! Not long after Jin Qilong entered the Wuheng Cave, the void outside the Wuheng Cave cracked open once more. a party of 3 martial artists gradually appeared. These 3 martial artists did not stop in front of the Wuhang cave. The moment they appeared, their figures flashed, entering inside the Wuhang cave. In a short time, 6 to 7 martial artists appeared one after another. Furthermore, all of them entered the Wuhang cave. This kind of change made the expression of Lu Chuanji, who had long been hiding in the void, become somewhat livid. Damn it! The enraged Lu Chuanji even exploded with vulgarities. The reason why Lu Chuanji hid here was in order to wait for Ning Yu, they all to come out, who knew that people entered the cave one after another, but no one came out. The more he thought, the more Lu Chuanji felt that something was not quite right. Why did so many people choose to enter the cave in front of him, and not a single person came out? Musing for a moment, Lu Chuanji decided to enter the cave to take a look too. No matter what, his cultivation was peak saint. Furthermore, due to the injuries caused by forcing the transmission array to stop, he had long recovered. Entering the cave at this time was not much danger to him. Chapter 1836. Ning Yu didn't know that so many people had entered the Wuhang cave. But even if Ning Yu knew, he couldn't do anything about it. The effect of the blood-devouring pill came so quickly that Ning Yu was a little surprised. Ning Yu originally estimated that he would need at least 2 hours to advance to the Peak Sky Supreme Realm after swallowing the blood-devouring pill. But he didn't expect that he would have the urge to break through in just 10 minutes. Anyone would be shocked to advance from the Late Sky Supreme Realm to the Peak Sky Supreme Realm in 10 minutes. In fact, although Ning Yu would be shocked to advance to the Peak Sky Supreme Realm in 2 hours, it wouldn't be as exaggerated as it was now. The current situation made Ning Yu extremely shocked. Be careful, I found someone entering the Wuhang cave. Just as Ning Yu was feeling shocked, Ning Lu's solemn voice suddenly rang in his ears. Hearing Ning Lu's words, Ning Yu's expression changed slightly. The shock on his face instantly disappeared and was replaced with the same solemn expression as Ning Lu. In fact, Ning Yu didn't even need to think to know who entered the Wuhang cave. Without a doubt, those who entered the Wuhang cave were all the top experts of the Pill Emperor City. After all, the commotion caused by Lu Chuanji before he left would definitely attract the attention of the experts of the Pill Emperor City, making everyone mistakenly think that there was an extraordinary artifact here. How long until they get here? Ning Yu took a deep breath and asked in a deep voice. The first batch of 3 people will be here in 5 minutes, Ning Lu replied. Find a way to inform Zhao Hang and get him to buy time for me. Ning Yu's expression was cold. He decided to let Zhao Hang deal with the sudden crisis. Zhao Hang had even given him the blood-devouring pill, so he definitely didn't want him to fail. Moreover, Zhao Hang's cultivation was at the mid-stage Saint Realm. Those who entered from the outside would at most be at the Peak Sky Supreme Realm. Even if those people had trump cards, Zhao Hang could deal with them easily. Be careful. I'll inform Zhao Hang now. Ning Lu thought about it and felt that Ning Yu's suggestion was not bad. Finding Zhao Hang at this time was undoubtedly the best solution. Whoosh! Ning Lu didn't waste too much time there. After replying to Ning Yu, he immediately tore open the void and flew towards the passageway where Zhao Hang was. Although Ning Lu's essence chi was leaking, his speed was not slow. It would probably take less than a minute to reach Zhao Hang's location. Charge! Seeing Ning Lu leave, Ning Yu clenched his teeth and hurriedly circulated the spirit transformation technique, wanting to refine the last remaining blood-devouring pill in his body. Ning Yu knew that as long as he could refine all the blood-devouring pellets, his cultivation would definitely reach the pinnacle heavenly sovereign realm. Chi-Chi. Following the continuous refinement of the blood-swallowing pill, Ning Yu's sea of consciousness emitted a Chi-Chi sound. This sound did not last for long before it was replaced by a series of muffled sounds. Bang, bang, bang. Every muffled sound was like the sound of nature, making Ningyu very excited. Because Ningyu knew that these muffled sounds were produced when he tried to break through the barrier of the pinnacle heavenly sovereign realm. When the muffled sounds disappeared or changed to another kind of sound, it would mean that he had broken through the barrier of the pinnacle heavenly sovereign realm and advanced to the pinnacle heavenly sovereign realm. Bang, bang, bang. The muffled sounds continued to ring out, causing Ningyu's heart to become anxious. If no one had entered the Wuhang cave, perhaps Ning, you would not have been so anxious. But now someone had entered, and he was here, trying to break through to the pinnacle heavenly sovereign realm. If it was an enemy who entered, the consequences would be unimaginable. Crack! Not long after, a crisp sound came from Ningyu's sea of consciousness, pinnacle heavenly sovereign realm. At this moment, Ningyu's cultivation advanced from the late stage heavenly sovereign realm to the pinnacle heavenly sovereign realm. Whoosh! After advancing to the pinnacle heavenly sovereign realm, Ningyu's tense nerves finally relaxed a little. No matter what, it was good that he could advance to the pinnacle heavenly sovereign realm. Moreover, Ningyu could feel that after advancing to the pinnacle heavenly sovereign realm, his combat strength had increased to a certain extent. In the past, when he was in the late stage heavenly sovereign realm, he could only deal with mid-stage sage realm martial artists. When facing late stage sage realm martial artists, he could only run. But now, he could face late-stage sage realm martial artists with ease. He could even escape from pinnacle sage realm martial artists. In other words, even if Ningyu couldn't contend against pinnacle sage realm martial artists, he could at least escape. Let's go to Ning Lu first. Ningyu retracted his aura and immediately followed Ning Lu's aura. Whoosh! Not long after Ningyu flew, he saw two martial artists flying toward him. Without a doubt, these two martial artists were Ning Lu and Zhao Hang. But what made Ningyu puzzled was that Song Wu did not follow them. Where's Song Wu? Although Ningyu didn't care about Song Wu's life or death, he felt that he should ask since he didn't see Song Wu. Here. Ning Lu patted his stomach and said, Song Wu wanted to escape, so I devoured him. Hearing Ning Lu's words, Ningyu's face darkened. But at the same time, Ningyu was shocked. It seemed that ever since he entered the everlasting cave, Ning Lu's devouring ability had increased a lot. In the past, it would take him some time to devour initial stage sage realm martial artists. Now, it only took him a few minutes to devour pinnacle sage realm martial artists. Ningyu felt that this change was a little unbelievable. If this situation continued, wouldn't Ning Lu be able to devour pinnacle sage realm martial artists in the blink of an eye when he advanced to the pinnacle sage realm? Shaking his head, Ningyu removed all these thoughts from his mind. There was not much point in thinking about these things at this time. Why did you only advance to the pinnacle sky supreme realm? Zhao Hang looked at Ningyu in a daze. At first, when Ning Lu told him that Ningyu had devoured and refined the blood-devouring pill, he was very excited. He thought that Ningyu was extremely talented and had advanced to the initial stage sage realm in such a short time. Who would have thought that Ningyu had only advanced to the pinnacle sky supreme realm? This discovery almost made Zhao Hang curse out loud. You only gave me one blood-devouring pill. Of course, I only advanced to the pinnacle sky supreme realm. Ningyu said helplessly, if you gave me a few more blood-devouring pills, I would definitely be able to advance to the initial stage sage realm. Are you sure that you finished refining one blood-devouring pill? Zhao Hang stared at Ningyu from left to right and was a little doubtful. One blood-devouring pill only made Ningyu advance from the late-stage sky supreme realm to the pinnacle sky supreme realm. How could Zhao Hang believe it? When he was in the late-stage sky supreme realm, he swallowed a blood-devouring pill and advanced to the half-saint realm. Chapter 1837. The more he thought about it, the more Zhao Hang felt that it was possible. In the devil's spirit realm, the blood-devouring pill was not only a divine medicine to improve cultivation, but also something to determine the martial Dao talent of a top genius. Generally speaking, under the same cultivation conditions, whoever had higher talent would have less advancement after swallowing the blood-devouring pill. Because geniuses with high martial Dao talent had very vigorous essence energy in their bodies, almost equivalent to two ordinary martial artists of the same cultivation. Thinking of this, Zhao Hang said calmly, "Do you think that if I give you a few more blood-devouring pills, you can advance to the early-stage sage realm?" "About 5 or so. I'm not very clear about the specifics. It depends on the situation." Ningyu thought about it and replied, "Now is not the time to discuss this, but what we should do. Should we stay and continue to resist the people entering the Wuhang cave, or do as you said and find a way to leave the Wuhang cave?" Actually, for Ningyu, he was more inclined to leave now. Stay and deal with the people entering the Wuhang cave? He did not want to do this hard work. But this was the second test that the martial artist in blue gave him and Ninglu. If Zhao Hang had no way to leave the Wuhang cave, then he could only stay. "There is a way, but with your current cultivation," Zhao Hang looked at Ningyu and did not continue the rest of the sentence. Even though Ningyu did not continue, but Ningyu was very clear that he despised his strength for being too low. "Say, what should we do?" Ningyu asked in a deep voice. "Very simple. You and I join forces and subdue the one-horned monster." Since Ningyu asked, Zhao Hang felt that he should tell Ningyu the process of the matter. The one-horned monster has the key to open the Wuhang cave. As long as we subdue him, we can leave the Wuhang cave. Ningyu was slightly surprised. Was it really as simple as Zhao Hang said? Inside the Wuhang cave, there was not only one-horned monster. There were also martial artists in blue, martial artists in white, and many martial artists who just came in. "What about my friends?" Although he was full of doubts, Ningyu still asked. Leaving the Wuhang cave was fine, but little Qilin, Tianji Laoren, and the others had to be brought along no matter what. If it was just the 3 of them leaving, Ningyu would definitely not agree. "Don't worry. Since I've decided to leave, I'm confident that I can take your friend with me." Zhao Hang waved his hand and said, "Let's go save your friend first, but I hope you don't screw up when the time comes." Whoosh! As he spoke, Zhao Hang leaped into the air and flew towards the Elder of Heavenly Secrets and the little Qilin. Seeing Zhao Hang fly away, Ningyu and Ning Lu glanced at each other, and then they flashed out in unison to follow closely behind Zhao Hang and charge out. At the same time, in the depths of the Wuhang cave, in a slightly spacious space, the little Qilin, old man Tianji, Ziyun, Yunmu, Guyan, and Haoping, the talisman sovereign, and Zhongchang were all standing there helplessly. Around them, for flags echoed each other from afar, and there were barriers in the middle. Ever since Ningyu and the single-horned monster left, the Elder of Heavenly Secrets and the rest had been staying here and didn't go anywhere else. At first, Yunmu wanted to leave, but fortunately, with the Elder of Heavenly Secrets' reminder, there wasn't any danger. But now, Yunmu's thoughts became lively again. Honestly speaking, no one would be able to endure staying in the same place for a long time without being able to move. Elder of Heavenly Secrets, are we going to stay here forever? Yunmu looked at the Elder of Heavenly Secrets and said, "You told us to wait, and we've already waited for a long time. But what about Ningyu? What if Ningyu dies?" Noisy! Before Yunmu could finish his words, the little Qilin said with a cold expression, "I told you to wait, so just wait. What's with all this nonsense?" Yunmu looked a little embarrassed when she was interrupted by the little Qilin. However, the little Qilin's cultivation far surpassed her, so she could only choose to compromise. "Ningyu won't die. The elder of heavenly secrets frowned slightly and said, "If I didn't guess wrongly after a period of time, Ningyu will definitely come and save us." Swoosh! At this moment, the void in the distance suddenly trembled. Then 3 figures leaped out of the void. These 3 figures approached from afar, and in the blink of an eye, they appeared in front of the elder of heavenly secrets and the others. Ningyu, Ninglu. Seeing 2 familiar figures, the elder of heavenly secrets' face lit up, and he hurriedly called out, "4 flags." After appearing, Ningyu's attention was completely attracted by the surrounding flags. Ningyu clearly remembered that before he left, there weren't 4 flags here. Now that there were 4 flags, it meant that the single horn monster was still not at ease and decided to trap the elder of heavenly secrets and the others. Is there a way? Ningyu turned around and stared at Zhao Hang as he asked, "Of course there is a way." Zhao Hang nodded and said, "However, before we break the 4 flags, we must first solve the big problem in front of us." "What big problem?" Ningyu was slightly startled, and he asked suspiciously, "Rumble." Just as Ningyu was feeling puzzled, the wall in front of him suddenly cracked open. A warrior with a horse's head and a human body slowly appeared in front of Ningyu and the others. A single-horned monster. Without a doubt, this martial artist with a human body and a horse head that had suddenly appeared was the single-horned monster that had captured Ningyu and Ninglu. How audacious of you to actually dare disobey! The horned monster's gaze was gloomy as it spoke fiercely. "Enough nonsense. Don't think that I don't know that the blue-clothed cultivator and the white-clothed cultivator are not in the everlasting cave right now." Zhao Hang rolled his eyes and interrupted the horned monster, and he said, "Presently only you, the horned monster, exists within the everlasting cave. Even the 4-horned monster that guards the everlasting cave all year round isn't here. He left. You. Upon hearing Zhao Hang's words, the one-horned monster looked as if it had seen a ghost. The one-horned monster had never imagined that Zhao Hang would actually know so much about the situation inside the Wuheng cave. Not long ago, a major earthquake occurred in the organization. The blue-clothed martial artist, the white-clothed martial artist, and even the 4-horned monster were all forced to leave the immortal spirit realm. One could say that inside the Wuheng cave at this time, there was only him, a member of the organization, remaining. And to the one-horned monster, the situation at this time was completely a mishap that happened to coincide with a continuous rain. On one hand, the blue-clothed martial artists, they all left. On the other hand, there was a large number of martial artists that entered the Wuheng cave again. Originally, with so many martial artists entering the Wuheng cave, the one-horned monster should be happy. But now that everyone left for the one-horned monster to want to control so many people, it was really powerless even if the spirit was willing. "You what you?" Zhao Hang said coolly, "I'm giving you 2 choices now. 1. Accept death obediently. 2. Surrender and obey my orders." Crack, crack. Zhao Hang looking down on the one-horned monster like this made the one-horned monster abnormally furious. The one-horned monster clenched its fists tightly, making cracking sounds. "Want to make me surrender? You need to have the capability first." Chapter 1838. Go. Zhao Hang's face turned cold as he looked at the monster charging at him. He turned to Ningyu and said, "Capture it alive!" As the words left his mouth, Zhao Hang's figure flashed, charging towards the single-horned monster. Rumble. Since it was a life-and-death battle, the monster wouldn't hold back. After executing the secret technique, the monster's cultivation was at the pinnacle of the Saint Realm, 2 levels higher than Zhao Hang's cultivation. Logically speaking, the monster in the pinnacle of the Saint Realm should be able to instantly kill Zhao Hang. However, Zhao Hang was not like an ordinary middle-stage sage. He was a peerless genius of the demonic spirit realm. He could fight against a martial artist whose cultivation was a few ranks higher than his, and he could even win. Although the monster's attacks seemed terrifying, they couldn't cause any actual harm to Zhao Hang. In other words, under normal circumstances, Zhao Hang was only slightly weaker than the single-horned monster. The monster could suppress Zhao Hang, but it couldn't kill him. Capture him alive? Ning Yu's face turned grave as he watched the battle between Zhao Hang and the monster, who said that he was still weaker than Zhao Hang despite reaching the pinnacle of the heavenly supreme realm. Zhao Hang was originally at a disadvantage against the monster. If he joined the battle, he might be able to tilt the scales in Zhao Hang's favor. Of course, he wouldn't be able to defeat the monster. Why don't I help? Seeing Ning Yu's hesitation, Ning Lu said, "If I go all out, I should be able to heavily injure the monster. You stay and look after the old prophet and prevent the monster from doing anything out of desperation." Get Ning Lu to take action? Unless Ning Yu was a fool, he would never do that. As it turned out, Ning Yu wasn't a fool. Ning Yu immediately stepped on the ground and joined the battlefield not far away. Rumble. Just like what was said just now. As soon as Ning Yu joined the battlefield, the scales of victory tilted towards Zhao Hang. Don't force me. When the scales of victory shifted, the feeling of focusing on the monster was naturally the strongest. From being suppressed to being suppressed, it could be said that the one-horned monster's mentality had changed slightly. Fortunately, the one-horned monster's mind was strong enough. Otherwise, this kind of obvious disparity would easily cause him to reveal a flaw. Even though the scales of victory were tilted in Zhao Hang's favor and he couldn't cause any real harm to it, the one-horned monster was still furious. This was because the one-horned monster was the only one left in the Wuheng cave. Not only did he have to deal with Zhao Hang and Ning Yu, but he also had to deal with the other people who entered the Wuheng cave. As long as you surrender, everything will be fine. A strike landed on Zhao Hang's back, sending him flying several feet back. Zhao Hang said coldly, "But if you insist on going about things the wrong way, don't blame us for being impolite." Ha ha ha. The one-horned monster seemed to have heard the funniest joke in the world. He threw his head back and laughed loudly. Then he changed the topic and said sinisterly, "I think you've forgotten something." At this point, the horned monster stretched out his right hand and suddenly pointed at the nearby old prophet and the others, and the corners of his mouth curled up into an arc as he continued. "Their lives are in my hands. As long as I want to, I can kill them at any time." Swish! The one-horned monster's words made Ning Yu's face completely darken. Ning Yu had long guessed that the 4 flags were left behind by the one-horned monster, but he didn't dare to be sure. Now that the one-horned monster had said this, it meant that the 4 flags were very likely left behind by him. In a battle between 2 sides, the most terrifying thing was that one side had a handle on the other side. Under such circumstances, the side that had a handle on the other side had almost no chance of winning. "Don't worry. With me around, he won't dare to kill your friends." As if sensing Ning Yu's worry, Zhao Hang patted Ning Yu's shoulder and said, "Your friends aren't weak. Even if he activates the 4 flags, he won't be able to kill them in a short time. Moreover, activating the 4 flags requires time. I don't believe that the one-horned monster would dare to do that." Zhao Hang's analysis threw the problem back to the one-horned monster. Activating the flags required time, and as long as the one-horned monster dared to activate the array, Zhao Hang would dare to attack aggressively and kill the one-horned monster. In an instant, the one-horned monster's advantage turned into a disadvantage. At most, we'll fight to the death. Sensing that the other group of people was getting closer and closer, the one-horned monster's expression suddenly became ferocious. The one-horned monster's heart was as clear as a mirror. This was the Wuheng cave. Even if the other group of people came, it was impossible for them to cooperate with him. If the other group of people did not cooperate with Zhao Hang's group, then it would be a tripartite situation where no one could do anything to the other. But if the other group of people cooperated with Zhao Hang's group, then he would become the target of public criticism, and there was even a high possibility that he would end up vanishing into thin air. Ningyu, there are many people rushing over here now. I just want to know if they have a hostile relationship with you. Zhao Hang completely ignored the one-horned monster, because he knew very well that the one-horned monster would not really dare to fight to the death. People like this who said they wanted to fight to the death actually did not want to fight to the death. They just wanted to use it to threaten him. That's hard to say. Ningyu thought about it and said, the Songwu and Chininga that we killed before were Gong Yangqing's people. Those who entered the Wuheng cave later should be experts from Pill Emperor City. Then it's fine. Let's continue to attack. We must capture the one-horned monster alive. Zhao Hang saw things more clearly. If they wanted to leave the Wuheng cave, the only option was to capture the one-horned monster alive. In Zhao Hang's view, the one-horned monster would not really dare to fight to the death anyway. So even if other experts really came, he was not very afraid. Because this was the Wuheng cave, which could suppress the cultivation of experts to the Sky Supreme Realm. Those experts from Pill Emperor City, after their cultivation was suppressed to the Sky Supreme Realm, would probably be a little fearful if they encountered a saint-level martial artist again and would not dare to fight head-on. Zhao Hang was similar to Ningyu, swift and decisive. He attacked as soon as he said he would, without the slightest hesitation. Lunatics, you're all lunatics. Looking at Zhao Hang and Ningyu who were rushing towards him again, the one-horned monster could not help but shout, "Since you're so presumptuous, I'll show you what I'm made of." The moment the voice sounded, the one-horned monster opened his mouth wide and spat out 2 blood-red cold rays. Swoosh! Swoosh! The blood-red cold rays were very fast. Almost in the blink of an eye, they arrived in front of Ningyu and Zhao Hang. Not good, he wants to escape. Zhao Hang's attention was not on the blood-red cold rays, but on the one-horned monster. Although the blood-red cold rays were very powerful, in Zhao Hang's eyes they were ordinary, completely not in line with the one-horned monster's peak sage strength. The one-horned monster said to show him what he was made of, but there was no reason for its power to be so low. So Zhao Hang focused his attention on the one-horned monster. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.